For thousands of years, humans have crafted tools and machines that challenge everything we thought we knew. Hidden beneath soil, ice, and forgotten ruins, ancient technology awaits discovery, objects that reveal knowledge, skill, and ingenuity far beyond their time. Tonight we will explore these remarkable inventions, from mysterious mechanisms to forgotten devices, each one telling a story of brilliance lost to history. From the frozen landscapes of Norway to the deserts of Egypt, and from hidden workshops to buried treasures, every artifact carries a secret, a lesson, and a glimpse into minds that shaped the world long before ours. Settle in. If you enjoy these journeys into the past, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment below, sharing which discovery amazed you the most. The Silent Tools of Norway, echoes from 9,000 years ago. Soft intro tone. For thousands of years, the mountains of Norway have been wrapped in silence. Snow covers the land like a white memory, and beneath it, layer after layer, lies the story of humankind itself. But sometimes the ice lets go of its secrets, and when it does, the world glimpses fragments of a past so distant, so quietly brilliant, that even scientists can only whisper in awe. It began high in the mountains, where glaciers had once ruled. Archaeologists and hikers noticed that as the ice melted in recent years, strange shapes began appearing along the ridges. Small, sharp, deliberate. At first glance, they looked like stones, but when touched, when turned over in the palm, they told a different story. They were tools, perfectly crafted, shaped with a precision that no one expected from a world 9,000 years gone. Tools that seemed in some ways more advanced than they should have been. The discovery site stretched across Norway's ancient hunting grounds, where reindeer once moved through the snow, and early humans followed their tracks through mist and silence. Over time, as the glaciers retreated, they left behind thousands of artifacts, arrowheads, blades, scrapers, even wooden shafts preserved so well that the grain could still be seen. To hold one was to hold time itself. Imagine standing there, the wind cuts softly across the valley, and at your feet lies a tool shaped by someone who lived before pyramids, before writing, before even cities existed. He or she stood where you now stand, shaping a stone edge with quiet mastery. Their breath turned to mist in the cold, their hands rough from the hunt, and yet the tools they made were so finely worked, so technically perfect, that archaeologists began to call them high-tech for their age. These ancient Norwegians, living 9,000 years ago, were part of a hunter-gatherer culture, known as the Mesolithic people. They did not build kingdoms, they left no temples, no great walls of stone, but what they did leave, these tools, showed a mind far more advanced than once believed. Microscopic studies revealed details invisible to the eye, symmetrical edges, polished surfaces, and precise angles cut with a method that seemed almost engineered. This was not crude survival work, this was craftsmanship, careful, intentional, and beautiful. And as more tools emerged from the melting ice, something became clear. These people weren't just surviving the harsh climate, they were mastering it. Imagine this scene. 9,000 years ago, the glaciers are smaller, but the air is still sharp. A small group moves across the frozen landscape. Men, women, children, carrying spears tipped with flint, so sharp it could slice through hide like glass. They track herds of reindeer, the lifeblood of their survival. And at night, they gather around fires, sharpening, shaping, teaching. Each generation learns the art of the stone, the feel of it, the rhythm of striking, the sound it makes when the edge is perfect. The firelight flickers across their faces, across the shimmering tools laid neatly in the snow. These were their treasures, not gold, not jewels, but knowledge. When scientists began to test the tools, they found something even more surprising. Some of the material wasn't local. The stones had been carried, perhaps traded from far away. That meant that 9,000 years ago, these mountain hunters already had networks. They exchanged knowledge, material, maybe even stories, across great distances. The tools weren't just weapons or instruments. They were evidence of communication, of contact, of something deeply human. And this is where the mystery deepens. Among the thousands of items unearthed, archaeologists noticed patterns that defied the expected timeline. Certain blade types resembled designs that would appear thousands of years later in other parts of Europe. It was as though time had folded, ideas existing before their invention, crafted by people we once thought primitive. So how did they learn this skill? How did they create symmetry so perfect without metal tools or modern equipment? Some say it was instinct, the natural evolution of craftsmanship. Others wonder if there was something we still don't fully understand, a lost method, a forgotten intelligence, perhaps even a form of early design thinking that predates civilization itself. But what truly haunts those who study these artifacts is not just their precision, it's their silence. Each piece lies wordless, telling no direct story, no inscription, no name, no maker's mark. Only the curve of a blade, the polish of a surface, the tiny details that whisper, "Someone made me with care, someone understood the world in ways we still struggle to grasp." When the archaeologists pack up for the night, the mountain remains quiet. The snow drifts softly over the dig sites. The same wind that once brushed the faces of those early people now brushes the tents of the scientists. In that stillness, separated by 9,000 years, it feels as if time itself is breathing in and out, slowly, peacefully. And maybe that's why these discoveries matter so much, because they remind us that human brilliance doesn't belong to modernity. It has always been there in hands that worked in silence, in eyes that saw beauty in stone, in minds that shaped survival into art. Every arrowhead, every flake of flint, every fragment from that Norwegian ice field is a message from the past. We were here, we thought, we created. These are not relics of ignorance, but proof of intelligence, of connection, of endurance. And as the ice continues to melt, more of their world awakens. New discoveries surface each year. Pieces of skis, fragments of leather, tools still sharp after 9 millennia. It's as if the earth, after holding its breath for centuries, has begun to exhale its memories again. Europe's oldest blue pigment repaints prehistoric art history. In the quiet valleys of southern Spain, beneath the layers of time and stone, there lies a cave that has not seen the sun for thousands of years. The air inside is still and heavy, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant echoes. When archaeologists first stepped into its darkness, they expected the familiar palette of prehistoric art, reds drawn from ochre, blacks from charcoal, maybe a trace of brown or yellow. But what they found was something entirely different, something that should not have been there at all, a faint, fragile shimmer of blue. For a long moment no one spoke. The color seemed to breathe in the torchlight, cool and soft against the ancient rock. Blue. It was the rarest of pigments in the ancient world, a color that humans struggled for millennia to capture. In nature, blue is elusive. The sky has it, the sea reflects it, but the earth hides it. To create it, to trap it inside paint, required knowledge and patience far beyond what anyone thought our ancestors possessed 9,000 years ago. And yet here it was, a thin veil of azure, brushed onto the walls of a forgotten world. Scientists at first believed it to be contamination, a trick of mineral salts or moisture, but analysis revealed the truth. It was azurite, a copper-based mineral that had been ground into fine powder and mixed with a binder, perhaps animal fat or plant resin, to create a paint that has endured for nearly 10 millennia. Whoever made it wasn't simply an artist. They were a chemist, a thinker, a dreamer, who saw more in the earth than most could imagine. Picture that moment long ago. A small fire flickers at the cave's heart. Shadows dance along the rough walls. Somewhere, a figure kneels, grinding stone upon stone, the slow, steady rhythm echoing like a heartbeat. Blue dust gathers beneath their hands. They dip a finger into it, mix it with a drop of fat, and lift it toward the wall. The color spreads, soft, uncertain, alive. In that single act, humanity crossed an invisible line. Art was no longer bound by what was easy or near. It had become a quest for what was possible. The pigment found in that Spanish cave is now recognized as Europe's oldest known blue, older than any similar color in art by thousands of years. It changes what we thought we knew about the prehistoric mind. For generations we believed those early artists were simple imitators of nature, using whatever colors lay close at hand. But this discovery proves something more profound. They were explorers of material, experimenters of vision. They sought color where there was none, light where there was darkness. Azurite doesn't occur near that cave. It would have had to be carried from distant deposits, miles away across rivers and hills. That journey tells us something vital, that the people of this time traded, traveled, and shared knowledge. They carried not just tools and food, but ideas. To them, color was worth effort, worth distance. Blue was not merely pigment, it was meaning. Under the microscope, scientists found the paint blended with fine traces of clay and calcium carbonate. Those ingredients helped it cling to stone, proof that the maker understood how to give their art permanence. It wasn't random. It was science before science had a name. And yet the reason for the blue remains a mystery. Was it symbolic? Spiritual? Did it represent water, the sky, the divine? We may never know. But even in not knowing, we feel the pull of that ancient intention. A whisper that someone, long ago, looked at a gray world and decided to make it brighter. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that cave. The fire crackles. The air hums with the slow rhythm of grinding stone. The faint blue glow spreads across the wall, glinting against the dark. Outside, the Ice Age winds sweep over empty plains, but inside there is warmth, not from fire alone, but from creation. A thought made visible, a color born from patience and imagination. As centuries turned to millennia, the cave sealed itself in silence. Dust fell like snow over the paintings. The people moved on. The world changed. Empires rose and fell, but deep inside, untouched by time, that shade of blue remained. And then, one day, a beam of light from a modern lamp swept across it, and the ancient color breathed again. When the samples reached the laboratory, the scientists could hardly believe what they were seeing. The chemical structure of the pigment matched that of azurite, a mineral normally associated with far later civilizations. How could it exist here, in a world still defined by stone tools and survival? The answer lies in the human spirit itself. Even then, before language or cities, people were already reaching beyond their limits, already seeking beauty for its own sake. The discovery reshaped how we understand prehistoric Europe. These were not crude painters living in isolation. They were early scientists, early travelers, part of networks that stretched across the continent. The blue on that wall connects to other pigments found later in Portugal, France, and Italy, forming a faint trail of human curiosity winding through time. Wherever people went, they carried with them not just food and fire, but art, the desire to leave something behind that could outlast them. Think of that. A single hue, created in a cave no one knew existed, still speaks today. Its creator is long gone, their name, their tribe, their language forgotten, but the color remains, an echo of thought that refused to fade. It tells us that art is older than history, older than writing, older than belief. It is instinct. Blue was never easy. In later centuries, Egyptians ground lapis lazuli to adorn the eyes of their gods. Romans used rare minerals to paint the heavens on their ceilings. Medieval artists treasured ultramarine so much that it was worth more than gold. But the first to touch blue were those ancient souls in the dark of a cave, painting with nothing but patience and hope. Now, as you listen, let your mind wander there. Picture the artist's hand, steady, deliberate, tracing a figure on the wall. Perhaps an animal, perhaps a spirit, perhaps something we'll never understand. The cave is quiet, except for the slow breathing of the fire. The air glows warm near the flames, and cold in the shadows. And in the center of it all, a tiny patch of blue gleams faintly, as if it holds the sky itself. 9,000 years later, that same color still catches the eye of those who find it. It reminds them, reminds us, that even in the harshest times, humans searched for beauty. They didn't need it to survive. They created it because they wanted to. Because somewhere deep inside, they understood that beauty is survival too. When you think about it, that is what connects us to them. Not the tools, not the language, but the quiet urge to make the world just a little more beautiful than we found it. To leave behind something that says, I was here, I saw this, I felt this. And so the blue remains, a single stroke in the long painting of humanity. It whispers through time, soft as breath, ancient as the night sky. When you close your eyes, you can almost see it, glowing faintly on the stone, still alive after all these years. Ancient Egyptian police and the tiny cowbone whistle, deep along the banks of the Nile, where the sun rises slowly over golden sands, there lies a history few ever imagine. Ancient Egypt, a civilization built of stone, faith, and meticulous order, was not only a place of monumental temples and grand pharaohs. It was a world of guardians, of watchful eyes, of secrets so precious that every step, every breath, was measured. And among these guardians were those entrusted with protecting the royal tombs. For centuries the pyramids and burial chambers were thought to be silent, empty of all but the passing wind, yet the walls hid the intricate workings of human vigilance. In the shadowed corridors of the Valley of the Kings, archaeologists have unearthed an object so small, so unassuming, that it might easily have been overlooked. It is a whistle, carved from the bone of a cow, no larger than a finger, yet in its simplicity lies the proof of extraordinary foresight, the ingenuity of a civilization that understood danger, loyalty, and the power of sound. Imagine the tombs of the pharaohs, grand chambers lined with gold and artifacts intended to accompany the deceased into eternity. These chambers were more than resting places. They were sanctuaries of memory, of culture, and of wealth so vast it could tempt the most cunning of thieves. Protecting them required more than walls. It required strategy, subtlety, and vigilance that stretched into the night. The cowbone whistle, small and hollow, was one such strategy. Archaeologists discovered these whistles in the ruins of outposts surrounding the tombs, carried by the guards. They were not mere instruments of noise. They were signals, tools of communication designed to alert others across the dark corridors and narrow passageways. When sounded, the whistle could travel farther than a human voice, cutting through the silence and the fear, summoning reinforcements or warning of approaching intruders. To understand this device fully, one must imagine the life of a tomb guard. In the quiet nights of ancient Thebes, under the vast dome of stars they would patrol, holding torches that flickered against the stone walls. Their footsteps echoed softly, yet constantly, reminding them that the treasures they guarded were coveted by many. The whistle rested in their hand or pocket, ready at a moment's notice. A small squeeze, and a sharp piercing note would sound, as urgent as it was concise. That sound could mean life or death, security or intrusion. The use of bone, particularly from cattle, was deliberate. Cow bones were readily available, durable, and resonant. When shaped into a whistle, the tone was clear, penetrating, almost musical, yet it carried authority, warning, and precision. Modern researchers tested replicas of these whistles, noting how far the sound traveled through the labyrinthine corridors of tombs, through chambers adorned with gold, through stone carved centuries before. They marveled at the ingenuity. A civilization known for monumental architecture had also mastered the subtle arts of acoustic warning. It is easy to imagine the subtle rhythm of guards in pairs or groups, one patrolling the outer passageways, another listening at the inner chambers, their lives bound by vigilance and shared responsibility. The whistle was a language of trust. One note meant danger, 2 notes meant all clear, 3 notes perhaps signaled an immediate need for reinforcements. It is a system so elegant in its simplicity that it reminds us even today of the practical intelligence of those who walked these sands long ago. The small artifact tells a story not only of protection, but of human ingenuity. Ancient Egypt is often remembered for its grandeur, for its pyramids and tombs, but the cowbone whistle reminds us that greatness lies also in attention to the smallest detail. A tiny tool, light enough to fit in a hand, could control the flow of life within the tombs, the safety of treasures, and even the very outcome of events that might have altered history. Consider the fear, the anticipation, the darkness of a tomb at night. A shadow moves across the wall, the whistle sounds, reinforcements rush, a theft is prevented, and so the tomb remains untouched. The pharaoh rests undisturbed. These devices were not relics of casual invention. They were deliberate, designed to last, to perform reliably in an environment where error could cost lives. For modern archaeologists, discovering the whistle has also revealed insight into the daily life of guards. Their routines, their hierarchies, their reliance on auditory signals, all these became clearer. The whistle was not ceremonial, it was practical, a silent sentinel in the hands of those sworn to protect sacred spaces. Even today, the knowledge embedded in this simple bone device continues to inspire. Historians and engineers alike study the acoustic properties, marveling at the forethought required to create a reliable, efficient warning system without the technology we consider necessary. The story of the cowbone whistle also speaks to the human desire to preserve, protect, and transmit. It connects us to the past, not through stone and hieroglyphics alone, but through the soft, sharp sound that once pierced the tomb corridors, a reminder that those who came before us had not only vision, but responsibility. Every scratch, every curve on the whistle tells a narrative of care, of precision, of understanding. It is a message encoded in bone, a language that has survived thousands of years. Imagine standing in a tomb today, holding a replica of that whistle. The stone beneath your fingers is cold, the air dry and dusty. You blow softly, and a sound echoes faintly through the chamber. For a fleeting moment, you are the guard, walking the corridors of time. You hear the whispers of those who lived, who labored, who protected the legacy of kings, and in that moment, you understand the weight of trust, the value of a small, seemingly insignificant tool, and the enduring ingenuity of human beings. 30,000-year-old Hunter's Toolkit reveals Stone Age survival strategies. In the quiet expanses of Eastern Europe, where the forests stretch endlessly and the rivers cut slow, winding paths through the land, there are traces of lives that existed 30,000 years ago. The people who walked these forests carried nothing but their knowledge, their instincts, and their tools. They were hunters, survivors, and innovators, and though the wind has long since swept away the footprints of their feet, the objects they left behind tell their story. Archaeologists, working carefully over decades, have uncovered a remarkable set of tools, a hunter's toolkit preserved in the earth. Stone blades, bone points, and antler harpoons, each carefully crafted and tested by hands that knew the balance between life and death. These tools were not random, they were part of a system honed to perfection. Every notch, every edge, every curve tells us about strategy, patience, and understanding of the natural world that is both humbling and profound. Imagine for a moment a forested landscape 30,000 years ago. The air is crisp and carries the scent of pine and wet earth. A lone hunter moves silently through undergrowth, his breath measured, his footsteps calculated. He carries in a simple leather pouch the tools he has made, each one selected for its purpose: a stone blade for cutting meat, a bone point for piercing hide, a harpoon for fishing in the icy waters nearby. These are extensions of his body, his thoughts, his awareness of the land. The toolkit itself offers extraordinary insight. The materials were chosen deliberately, stones that chipped cleanly, bones that were strong yet flexible. The maker understood the properties of each material, the way force travels through a spear, the leverage of a blade. These were not tools of convenience, they were tools of survival, and their preservation, buried in silt and soil for tens of thousands of years, allows us to glimpse the intelligence of a people who lived in harmony with the earth around them, reliant on it for every meal, every step, every breath. In the laboratory, each artifact is examined with meticulous care. Microscopic scratches reveal repeated use. Tiny residues of plant fibers and animal blood tell the story of hunts, of meals shared, of the rhythm of life. When the stone points are placed against the bones of prey animals, it is evident that these hunters were precise, skilled, and thoughtful. Every action was measured, every strike calculated. Survival demanded it. But beyond survival, these tools speak to the ingenuity of early humans. The toolkit is evidence of experimentation, of trial and error, of learning and teaching. A particular blade may show signs of reshaping, perhaps repaired after a break. A bone harpoon might be smoothed and fitted into a wooden shaft, demonstrating not just craftsmanship, but an understanding of physics and mechanics. Even in an age without writing, without instruction manuals, knowledge was preserved, passed from one hunter to the next, carefully transmitted like a living memory. Consider the life of the hunter. Each day was defined by cycles, observing animal patterns, reading the weather in the clouds, tracking footprints in mud, listening to the river. The hunter's success depended on intuition as much as skill, and when he finally approached his quarry, he used tools that were perfect in their simplicity. Nothing was wasted, nothing superfluous. Every item had its purpose, its history, and its reason. Some of the tools were found in shallow pits, perhaps caches hidden deliberately. Others were scattered across the landscape, left where a hunt had ended or where a camp had been abandoned. Each tells a story of mobility and adaptation, of a people moving with the seasons, following herds, and understanding migration patterns of animals. It is a life of observation, patience, and intimate connection to the land. One particularly fascinating discovery is a set of bone awls, used for piercing leather. The precision of these tools suggests knowledge of clothing construction, of shelter preparation, and of protection against the harsh winters. The hunter was not only a predator, but a designer, a planner, and a caretaker of resources. Life was never easy, but ingenuity transformed challenge into survival. The artifacts also reveal social dynamics. Tools of exceptional quality were likely shared, taught, or passed down. Young hunters would have learned by observation, by practice, by mimicking gestures of those more experienced. In this sense, the toolkit becomes more than a collection of objects. It is a record of human learning, cooperation, and cultural transmission. As you imagine these scenes, picture the hunter preparing his tools before dawn. The forest is silent, except for the distant cry of birds and the whisper of wind through trees. He sharpens a blade, tests the tension of a harpoon, listens for the slightest sound of water or movement. His survival depends on the reliability of these objects, and he treats them with care, respect, and understanding. The preservation of the toolkit is extraordinary. Buried in layers of silt, ice, or sediment, these tools survived millennia untouched. They are physical connections to a world long gone, yet alive in their lessons. They remind us of human resilience, creativity, and the quiet brilliance of minds attuned to the natural environment. Even now, holding replicas in museums, we can feel the weight of responsibility these hunters carried. Each tool required knowledge, strength, and precision. Each hunt demanded observation, strategy, and patience. The toolkit, in its silent way, conveys all of this without a single word. It speaks in shape, wear, and material, teaching us about the universality of survival and the extraordinary capacity of humans to adapt, innovate, and endure. And so, when we reflect on these artifacts, we understand more than just survival strategies. We see the first whispers of human ingenuity, the slow accumulation of knowledge, and the gentle shaping of culture. 30,000 years ago, a hunter in a cold forest used simple stones and bones to navigate a harsh world. Today, we study these objects, allowing them to guide us, inspire us, and remind us of the timeless human quest to understand, adapt, and endure. Take a slow breath. Let the forest unfold in your mind. Hear the quiet rhythm of steps through undergrowth, the faint scrape of stone against bone, the patience, the care, the focus of life lived entirely in harmony with the land. Allow yourself to drift with this story, to imagine the quiet genius of early humans and the tools that carried them through countless winters, countless hunts, and countless dawns. 30,000 years later, the toolkit still speaks, softly, patiently, eternally, a whisper across the ages. It reminds us that intelligence, creativity, and survival are intertwined, that even the smallest stone, the simplest bone, can hold the story of a life, a people, and a world waiting to be understood. And as you listen, allow yourself to sink into the rhythm of this story. Let the forest, the hunter, the quiet clang of tools, and the patient march of time carry you into calm, into reflection, into sleep. Let the past and its wisdom wash over you gently, endlessly, as the hunter did so long ago, guided only by instinct, care, and quiet brilliance. Göbekli Tepe's star map, ancient astronomers and predictions of catastrophes. In the rolling plains of southeastern Turkey, where the land stretches in quiet hills and the horizon seems to touch eternity, lies one of humanity's earliest and most mysterious constructions, Göbekli Tepe. For decades, this site has challenged our understanding of history, of civilization, and of human intelligence. Built over 11,000 years ago, long before the rise of writing, cities, or formal agriculture, it holds secrets that continue to puzzle scholars. Among the many mysteries of Göbekli Tepe is a question that bridges astronomy, culture, and survival. What did the people here know about the sky, and how did they record it? The site itself is composed of massive stone pillars, arranged in circular enclosures, carved with intricate symbols of animals, humans, and abstract shapes. These pillars rise from the earth, like frozen sentinels, silent witnesses to the dawn of organized human thought. Yet beyond their sheer scale and artistry, researchers have uncovered something extraordinary: alignments and markings that may represent some of the earliest known star maps in human history. To understand this, imagine the night sky as it appeared over 10 millennia ago. Without artificial light, the stars would have blazed with brilliance, constellations dancing in patterns both familiar and foreign to modern eyes. The builders of Göbekli Tepe lived in intimate connection with this sky. Their lives, their seasons, and their rituals were tied to the movements of celestial bodies. They observed the waxing and waning of the moon, the shifting of the stars, and the cycles of planets, and in these observations they found guidance, not only for planting and hunting, but for interpreting the world around them. Archaeologists and archaeoastronomers studying Göbekli Tepe have noted that many of the pillars align with significant celestial events. Certain carvings correspond with star clusters and constellations that during the time of construction would have held special significance. For example, some researchers suggest that the arrangement of pillars reflects the rising and setting of stars associated with seasonal changes. Others propose that these alignments may have recorded rare astronomical phenomena, comets, eclipses, or meteor showers, which could have been interpreted as omens or messages from the heavens. One of the most compelling hypotheses is that Göbekli Tepe may have served as an observatory, not only for tracking time, but for predicting natural events. By carefully observing the movement of stars, ancient astronomers could anticipate changes in climate, migration patterns of animals, or even potential disasters. The carvings themselves, etched into stone with remarkable precision, could have functioned as a reference system, a celestial guide preserved for future generations. To visualize this, imagine the night. A small group gathers around a central pillar, torchlight flickering against stone. One individual traces the position of a star across the sky, while another marks it on the pillar with symbols known only to their group. They record not merely patterns but warnings, stories, and instructions, encoded in imagery that speaks across time. These are not abstract decorations, they are communication, both practical and spiritual, a bridge between the earthly and the cosmic. What adds depth to this story is the potential prediction of catastrophes. Some scholars propose that Göbekli Tepe may have encoded knowledge of celestial events that foreshadowed environmental upheavals, from floods to severe climatic shifts. In a world without written language, these stone symbols may have served as an early warning system, a repository of human observation intended to guide survival. Each pillar, each carving, is part of a language of vigilance and understanding, a silent narrative that connects the observer with the cosmos. Yet the mystery deepens. Unlike later civilizations, we have no written records to confirm the intentions of these builders. We can infer, hypothesize, and simulate, but the precise meaning of each symbol remains elusive. Some carvings depict animals that appear to correspond to constellations, yet others are abstract, enigmatic, perhaps representing concepts that have no modern equivalent. What was considered significant, sacred, or catastrophic to these early humans may be entirely different from our interpretation today. Despite this uncertainty, the site continues to inspire awe. Archaeologists meticulously document every carving, measure every alignment, and simulate ancient night skies to understand the builder's knowledge. Technology allows us to project the stars as they appeared thousands of years ago, and in doing so patterns emerge. There is a sense that the people of Göbekli Tepe were not passive observers of the heavens. They were engaged, attentive, and deliberate. They recorded what they saw with care and purpose, leaving behind a legacy that challenges modern assumptions about the cognitive abilities of prehistoric societies. Imagine walking among these pillars today, feeling the weight of history under your hands. Each stone is weathered by time, yet the carvings remain, faintly but clearly, echoing the gestures of hands that shaped them long before the rise of civilizations we now consider ancient. You can almost hear the whispers of those observers, their quiet conversations about stars, seasons, and survival. Their knowledge was not casual. It was vital, and in a world so dependent on environmental cues, their observations were a lifeline. The star map theory, while still debated, opens the door to a remarkable realization: human curiosity and ingenuity are timeless. 10,000 years ago, people gazed upward with the same wonder we feel today, seeking patterns, meaning, and guidance. They connected their lives with the universe in ways that were both practical and spiritual, and the structures at Göbekli Tepe stand as enduring proof that observation, creativity, and careful planning have always been central to our survival. Even more fascinating is the continuity of knowledge. Later civilizations, from Sumerians to Egyptians, developed complex calendars, celestial myths, and predictive systems. Göbekli Tepe may represent the earliest chapter in this ongoing human story, the moment when observation of the night sky transformed into recorded understanding, when humans began to encode knowledge in enduring forms. As you imagine this, picture the night sky over Göbekli Tepe. Constellations sweep slowly, the Milky Way arcs across the heavens, and the wind rustles through the hills. In the stillness, a small group marks the positions of stars on stone, noting the seasons, anticipating change, recording wisdom. They are silent, attentive, deliberate, and through millennia, their work reaches us as stone carvings, alignments, and patterns that hint at knowledge far beyond their time. Let yourself drift with this vision. Feel the cool night air, the quiet of the plains, and the gentle resonance of human ingenuity echoing through history. Let the care, attention, and patience of these early astronomers wash over you, carrying your thoughts into calm, into reflection, and into gentle rest. Göbekli Tepe reminds us that curiosity is ancient, observation is vital, and human intelligence has always sought to understand the universe. The star maps, the carvings, and the silent stones whisper across the ages, teaching us patience, wonder, and the quiet brilliance of a people who looked to the heavens and recorded what they saw, not for fame or fortune, but for life itself. Rare ancient sundial reveals Greek maritime mysteries along the rugged coastline of western Turkey, where the Aegean waves lap softly against cliffs, and the wind carries the faint scent of salt and history. Archaeologists have uncovered an object that quietly reshapes our understanding of ancient Greek seafaring. It is a sundial, unassuming in size, yet extraordinary in function. At first glance, it may appear to be merely a carved stone, worn by centuries of sun, wind, and rain. But closer examination reveals a tool of precision, intelligence, and maritime foresight, created thousands of years ago to measure time and guide journeys across open waters. The sundial was found near the ruins of an ancient Greek settlement, where once fishermen, traders, and sailors lived in harmony with the rhythms of the sea. Its markings are intricate, geometric, and deliberate, carved into stone with care that suggests deep understanding of the sun's movement and the shifting shadows it casts. This was not a decorative object, it was a practical instrument, a guide for those who depended on the sun to navigate, to calculate, and to survive in a world defined by water and sky. Imagine a Greek mariner standing on the shore, the wind in his hair, waves breaking gently against the hull of a small vessel. He consults the sundial, aligning its gnomon with the sun, reading its carefully etched lines. Every mark is a reference, a measure of hours, of the passage of light, and by extension, of time itself. With this knowledge, he can estimate when to set sail, how to track the progress of the sun across the sky, and how to anticipate the changing conditions at sea. It is a tool of survival, innovation, and ingenuity, quietly profound in its simplicity. The discovery of this sundial has raised questions and sparked fascination among scholars. The precision of its construction implies a sophisticated understanding of astronomy and mathematics. Ancient Greeks, known for their interest in philosophy, geometry, and the cosmos, appear to have applied this knowledge practically, integrating science with daily life and survival. The sundial is evidence that ancient communities could observe patterns, record them, and use them in ways that affected travel, trade, and communication over long distances. Consider the lives of those who relied on this tool. Each morning, the mariners would consult the sundial to determine the best time for departure. They would measure the sun's angle, translate it into hours, and make decisions based on its readings. Navigation was more than a skill, it was a delicate balance between observation, calculation, and intuition. The sundial served as a constant companion, a silent teacher that imparted knowledge of celestial cycles without words. The inscriptions on the sundial are also significant. Scholars note that they are more than mere lines or hour markers. Some may represent seasonal variations, reflecting an understanding of the changing path of the sun across the year. Others may indicate times of ritual, periods when certain journeys were auspicious, or times when the sea itself was most forgiving. In this way, the sundial is both a practical instrument and a cultural artifact, linking daily life to cosmic order. What makes this discovery even more remarkable is its preservation. Despite millennia of erosion, the stone retains its integrity, its markings still legible. Archaeologists have carefully documented each groove and line, measuring angles, comparing them with historical astronomical data, and simulating sunlight patterns to understand the tool's accuracy. The result is a vision of ancient life, where science and survival were intimately connected, and where human ingenuity met the challenges of the natural world with elegance and precision. Imagine standing on that same shore today. The waves are gentle, the sun dips toward the horizon, and the stone sundial rests quietly in its place. It is a whisper from the past, a reminder that knowledge can endure, that human curiosity has always sought to measure, understand, and navigate the world. The Greek mariners, long gone, left behind not only their settlements, but also the tools of their intelligence, offering us insight into lives defined by observation, skill, and an unbroken connection to the sun. Beyond its function, the sundial speaks to the broader culture of Greek maritime communities. These were people who traveled, traded, and communicated across vast stretches of water, relying on tools like this sundial to guide them safely. They observed the world carefully, recorded patterns, and built knowledge systems that informed not only navigation, but also agriculture, ritual, and daily routines. Each carved line, each precise angle, represents both practical wisdom and a worldview that connected humans to the cosmos. Take a moment to imagine the quiet diligence required to create such a tool. A craftsman selecting the stone, measuring, and etching each mark with care. Perhaps the creator observed the sun for months, noting its subtle movements across the sky, aligning the stone to ensure precision. The process was deliberate, patient, and meditative, a reflection of human thought, meeting natural phenomena in harmony. As night falls over the Aegean coast, the sundial rests under the starlit sky, a silent witness to centuries of observation and exploration. It reminds us that even small objects, simple tools, can carry immense significance. They connect us to the minds of those who came before, who navigated by instinct and intellect, who measured time not with clocks but with careful attention, respect, and understanding of the world around them. Let yourself drift into this vision. Picture the gentle lapping of waves, the steady movement of the sun, and the careful hands of a craftsman long ago. Feel the slow rhythm of life, observation, and quiet ingenuity. Let the story carry you into calm, reflection, and the gentle passage of time. Allow the sundial's history to wash over you, its lessons of patience, precision, and cosmic awareness merging with your own thoughts and guiding you toward rest. The ancient Greek sundial, discovered in Turkey, is more than an artifact. It is a testament to human curiosity, diligence, and the unbroken desire to understand the natural world. It is a whisper across millennia, urging us to notice, measure, and respect the rhythm of the universe. And as we close our eyes and listen to its story, we are carried into a space of calm, wonder, and timeless reflection, guided by the quiet brilliance of a people who once watched the sun, measured its light, and recorded the knowledge that would echo through history. Eagle-headed gods and Bronze Age banqueting. In a quiet valley of Eastern Europe, where rolling hills and gentle rivers have seen the passing of countless generations, archaeologists have uncovered traces of a civilization long lost to memory. It is a civilization defined not only by its artifacts but by its rituals, beliefs, and the remarkable connection its people had to both the earth beneath their feet and the skies above. Among the most intriguing discoveries are depictions of eagle-headed gods and evidence of elaborate banqueting practices, shedding light on the spiritual and social life of Bronze Age communities. The site itself, carefully excavated over several seasons, reveals remnants of stone foundations, pottery, and bronze objects, each telling its own quiet story. Yet it is the representations of eagle-headed figures that have captured the imagination of scholars, carved in relief, on ceremonial objects, painted on pottery, and etched into bronze. These figures seem to embody both the divine and the terrestrial. The eagle, a creature that soars high above the land, has long been a symbol of vision, power, and spiritual guidance. In these ancient depictions, it becomes a bridge between humans and the cosmos, a guide for rituals, decisions, and the understanding of life cycles. Imagine the communities that once thrived here. Their lives were shaped by the seasons, the land, and the need for both sustenance and social cohesion. Banqueting was not merely a meal, it was an event that reinforced social bonds, demonstrated status, and honored the gods. Large feasts, held in carefully arranged spaces, included shared meals, ceremonial drinks, and offerings to the eagle-headed deities. The placement of objects, the arrangement of food, and the accompanying rituals all reflected a sophisticated understanding of community, spirituality, and human connection. Archaeologists studying these sites have found remains of finely crafted bronze vessels, intricate jewelry, and ceremonial tools, all of which point to a culture of both artistic skill and ritual precision. The eagle-headed motifs appear consistently, suggesting a religious or symbolic significance that extended beyond mere decoration. Perhaps these figures were guardians of the feasts, protectors of the community, or representations of divine wisdom guiding the choices of leaders and elders. Consider the act of banqueting itself. A long table, laden with food from nearby fields and herds, hosts gathered around it in shared purpose. Conversations rise in quiet tones, laughter echoes softly, and prayers or songs may honor the eagle-headed gods above. Every object, from the bronze vessel to the carefully carved figurine, carries meaning. The community's understanding of their world, their place within it, and their connection to forces beyond the visible was expressed in these ceremonies, preserved in artifacts that now speak to us across millennia. The eagle-headed figures themselves are remarkable for their detail and symbolism. The heads, often adorned with stylized feathers and sharp, piercing eyes, are combined with human forms, blending the natural and supernatural. This hybrid imagery suggests that Bronze Age people saw the divine as an extension of the natural world, a force that guided both the daily and the extraordinary. Perhaps they believed that by invoking the eagle, they could gain insight, protection, and guidance, that the spirit of the eagle could lend clarity and foresight in matters of hunting, governance, or spiritual understanding. Further study reveals that these feasting sites were carefully positioned in relation to the landscape. High points, near rivers, or overlooking fertile valleys were chosen intentionally, suggesting an awareness of spatial harmony and ritual significance. The alignment of certain structures hints at observations of the sun, moon, or stars, possibly integrating astronomical knowledge into social and religious practice. Banqueting and divine observation, in this sense, were intertwined, reflecting a worldview where humans, gods, and the cosmos were inseparably connected. The evidence of food preparation is equally telling. Animal bones, charred grains, and remnants of herbs indicate a diet both practical and ceremonial. Certain foods may have been reserved for specific rituals, others for communal sharing, yet all were embedded with meaning. The act of eating together reinforced social hierarchies, honored divine figures, and allowed individuals to participate in a shared cultural identity. The eagle-headed gods, ever present in carvings and reliefs, likely reminded participants of the unseen forces guiding their lives, emphasizing both reverence and awareness. As night would fall over these Bronze Age settlements, smoke rising from hearths, the community would gather under starlit skies, sharing stories, songs, and prayers. The eagle-headed gods, imagined or invoked, watched over these gatherings. The rituals, meals, and symbolic objects formed a network of cultural continuity, a careful orchestration of belief, art, and daily life. In this we see not only spiritual sophistication, but also a social system that maintained cohesion, transmitted knowledge, and fostered collective identity. Today the artifacts speak across time. Each bronze figure, each carved image, each remnant of a feast reminds us that early humans sought understanding, connection, and meaning. Their lives were complex, deliberate, and rich with observation. The eagle-headed gods, carved with care and imagination, symbolize a bridge between mortality and eternity, between human effort and cosmic order. Imagine walking slowly through the excavation site. Feel the earth beneath your feet, the faint scent of ancient soil, the cool breeze moving through the empty spaces once filled with voices. Visualize the feasts, the offerings, the quiet reverence paid to eagle-headed guardians. Let your mind linger on the thoughtfulness, the devotion, and the observation of these ancient people. Each artifact carries intention and history, a story patiently waiting for us to understand. As you let your attention drift over these details, notice how the passage of time has preserved their legacy. The eagle-headed figures remain, bronze vessels endure, and the arrangement of ancient spaces continues to convey meaning. These artifacts are silent teachers, guiding us not only through the specifics of Bronze Age culture, but through the human desire to observe, connect, and record. Let yourself relax into this story. Feel the calm of the valley, the rhythm of daily life in a distant time, the quiet presence of eagle-headed gods guarding and observing. Allow the careful movements, rituals, and shared meals of this Bronze Age community to ease your mind, carrying you into reflection, rest, and gentle calm. The eagle-headed gods and the banqueting rituals are more than historical curiosities. They are reminders of humanity's enduring need to understand the world, to honor it, and to participate in a collective story that stretches across generations. As we imagine their lives, we are invited to slow down, to listen to the echoes of the past, and to let the quiet wisdom of these ancient peoples guide our thoughts into stillness. And so, as the sun sets over the valley, and the stones and artifacts settle into the evening air, the story of eagle-headed gods and Bronze Age banquets lingers. It is a story of observation, community, and reverence, preserved in bronze, carved stone, and memory, ready to calm the mind and inspire a gentle journey into rest. Symbol of power, 1,800-year-old Roman ship prow, unearthed. Along the shores of the Mediterranean, where the sun casts a warm glow on the gentle waves, and the distant horizon seems endless, archaeologists have uncovered a fragment of history that whispers of imperial ambition, maritime skill, and the subtle artistry of a civilization long vanished. It is the prow of a Roman ship, carved with care and adorned with symbols of authority, preserved beneath centuries of sediment and saltwater. Though broken and worn by time, it remains a powerful testament to the ingenuity, ceremony, and symbolism of Roman naval life. The discovery took place along a coastal excavation, where teams of archaeologists carefully waded through shallow waters and soft sand, tracing remnants of what had once been a bustling port. At first, the wooden fragments appeared ordinary, small sections of a vessel scattered by tides and storms. Yet beneath layers of sediment, careful cleaning and preservation revealed a finely carved prow, the tip of the ship rising like a silent sentinel, its intricate reliefs depicting mythological figures, geometric patterns, and emblems of power. Imagine for a moment the original ship. Its prow rising above the water would have been a statement of strength, a signal to allies and adversaries alike. Roman vessels were not merely tools of transport, they were instruments of diplomacy, warfare, and prestige. Each carved figure, each decorative flourish, conveyed meaning, reminding all who saw it of Rome's authority, reach, and vision. This particular prow, though long submerged and hidden, still carries that weight, the essence of a civilization that valued both utility and symbolism. The craftsmanship of the prow speaks volumes. Even now, centuries later, we can discern the skill of artisans who transformed raw wood into a work of art. Tools would have been employed with precision, each cut measured, each curve smoothed to perfection. Perhaps the carvings were inspired by gods of the sea, protective spirits, or emblems of victory and conquest. Every detail was intentional, a visual language designed to communicate identity, status, and divine favor. Consider the lives of those who sailed upon this ship, crews trained in the rhythm of the waves, disciplined in the handling of sails and oars, attuned to wind, current, and celestial signs. For them, the prow was both guide and guardian. As the ship cut through waters, the carvings would reflect sunlight or moonlight, reminding sailors of the connection between the natural world, the divine, and human endeavor. It was more than decoration. It was an anchor of confidence and purpose. Excavation of the prow also revealed traces of paint and metal fittings, suggesting that in its prime, the ship would have been vibrant and imposing. Perhaps gilded accents caught the sun, and bronze attachments clinked softly against the wooden frame, producing a subtle music that accompanied voyages across calm seas and stormy waters alike. In this we see the Romans' understanding of spectacle and communication. The prow was not just functional, it was theatrical, symbolic, and commanding attention even from a distance. Archaeologists studying the site have noted the broader context of Roman naval power. Ships like this prow belonged to fleets that patrolled coastlines, transported goods and soldiers, and projected authority across distant waters. The Mediterranean was a network of commerce, diplomacy, and military might, and vessels carried not only cargo, but also messages, symbols, and the weight of empire. This prow is a fragment of that world, a tangible link to a civilization defined by exploration, organization, and the desire to leave a mark upon both land and sea. Imagine walking along the excavation site today. The air carries the faint scent of salt and earth. Your eyes follow the curves of the prow, tracing the reliefs of mythological figures, whose meanings may now be partially lost to time. Yet there is an unmistakable sense of presence. The prow embodies intent, purpose, and artistry. It is a voice from the past, whispering stories of voyages, storms weathered, ceremonies performed, and the pride of those who crafted and sailed upon her. The symbolic aspects of the prow are particularly compelling. Many carvings depict animals, deities, or heroic figures, motifs intended to convey protection, strength, and legitimacy. To those who viewed it centuries ago, the prow was not merely an object, it was a declaration of identity and authority. It connected sailors to Rome, to the gods, and to their own communal role in maintaining the empire's reach. These symbols were a form of communication across time, intended to resonate with observers and participants alike. As the sun moves across the sky, casting shadows across the carved wood, one can almost imagine the prow in its original context. Ships departing the harbor, sails billowing, crews coordinated in rhythm, the decorated tip cutting through waves, announcing the presence of Rome with quiet grandeur. Every journey carried risk, calculation, and ritual, and the prow's carvings were part of this larger orchestration of human endeavor, divine favor, and social order. The preservation of the prow offers us a rare window into Roman maritime life. Modern analysis, including dendrochronology and material study, has helped date the wood, trace its origins, and understand construction techniques. Each scientific insight enhances our understanding of the people who built, decorated, and sailed these vessels. The prow becomes more than a relic. It becomes a storybook, detailing human ingenuity, resourcefulness, and the integration of art into everyday life. Consider, too, the quiet moments aboard the ship. Nights at sea, with only stars above, and the gentle rocking of waves. Sailors may have looked to the prow for inspiration or solace. The carved figures, illuminated by torchlight or moonlight, would have been familiar companions in the darkness, offering reassurance and connection to something greater than themselves. It is in these moments, perhaps, that the prow's symbolic power was most profoundly felt. As you let yourself imagine this world, feel the rhythm of the waves, the tension of ropes, the scent of salt and timber, and the presence of carefully carved symbols guiding sailors through uncertainty. Let the story of the Roman ship prow ease your mind, its history flowing gently, quietly, like the tides themselves. This is not just an artifact, it is a bridge between centuries, a meditation on craftsmanship, authority, and human connection. And so the 800-year-old Roman ship prow rests today, beneath the careful attention of archaeologists. It is both silent and eloquent, a reminder of human ingenuity, maritime skill, and the power of symbols to endure. Its story carries across time, inviting us to slow our thoughts, observe the details, and drift. Giant stone doorway discovered in Kazakhstan. In the vast steppes of Kazakhstan, where golden grasses sway under an endless sky, and the horizon seems to stretch into eternity, archaeologists stumbled upon a discovery that has captivated the imagination of scholars, enthusiasts, and dreamers alike. Buried amidst the gentle hills, partially concealed by earth and time, lies a massive stone formation, a monolithic structure that some have called a doorway. Its proportions are immense, its lines sharp yet weathered by millennia, and its presence raises questions that stretch beyond conventional archaeology. At first glance, it appears to be nothing more than a peculiar arrangement of stones, jutting from the ground like sentinels frozen in place. But closer examination reveals deliberate shaping, careful alignment, and an almost architectural precision that is difficult to ignore. The stones are enormous, each weighing several tons, and their positioning suggests intent and design. How did ancient people, without modern machinery, move these stones and place them in such a precise manner? What purpose did this doorway serve, if it was indeed a doorway at all? Archaeologists studying the site have noted its unusual features. The base stones are perfectly leveled, and the upright monoliths frame an opening that seems to invite passage, though nothing lies beyond it except the gentle hills and the grasslands stretching into the distance. Some researchers suggest the structure was ceremonial, perhaps marking a sacred site or an astronomical alignment. Others argue that it could have been symbolic, representing a threshold between worlds, the living and the dead, or the earthly and the divine. The stones themselves bear traces of carving, faint lines and grooves that hint at human craftsmanship. These markings, subtle yet deliberate, suggest that the creators invested time and energy, not just in building, but in communicating something important. Were these symbols a form of language, a code, or simply decorative motifs meant to honor the structure's purpose? The ambiguity is part of the site's enduring fascination. As we contemplate the scale of the stones and the effort required to move them, the mind naturally drifts to questions of technology and possibility. Could ancient civilizations have possessed knowledge or techniques lost to us today? How did they transport and lift stones weighing several tons without cranes or pulleys, as we know them? Theories abound, ranging from ingenious engineering methods to more speculative ideas involving the intervention of forces beyond our understanding. Indeed, the size and precision of the structure have led some to entertain the notion that it may have had a connection to what some call ancient alien influence. While this theory remains controversial, it is a testament to the awe-inspiring nature of the doorway. Its presence challenges assumptions about what prehistoric people could achieve, and invites us to consider possibilities that blend history, myth, and imagination. Imagine standing before the monolithic stones, their shadows stretching across the steppe as the sun dips toward the horizon. The air is still, the wind whispers softly across the grass, and the doorway stands silently, as it has for thousands of years. There is a palpable sense of patience in its stance, as though it has been waiting, quietly, for someone to notice, to reflect, to wonder. The site also offers insights into the people who may have constructed it. Surrounding the doorway, archaeologists have found fragments of pottery, tools, and remnants of hearths. These objects, humble in comparison to the monoliths, speak to the daily lives of the builders. They were not gods, but humans, people who labored with intent, imagination, and perhaps reverence for forces greater than themselves. Their efforts were monumental, both in physical scale and in the symbolic meaning embedded in stone. Consider the potential function of the doorway. Was it a ceremonial entrance for sacred gatherings, a marker aligned with celestial events, allowing the people to observe solstices, equinoxes, or the movements of particular stars? Or was it a symbolic threshold, representing transitions, from life to death, ignorance to knowledge, the earthly to the divine? Each possibility opens a window into the minds of ancient builders, reminding us that their understanding of the world was both practical and deeply spiritual. The surrounding landscape plays a role in this story as well. Rolling hills, distant rivers, and open plains suggest a settlement that may have once thrived nearby. Archaeologists have speculated that the doorway was a focal point for a community, a gathering place for rituals, ceremonies, or communal observation. The relationship between humans and their environment, carefully considered in the placement of the stones, indicates a profound awareness of spatial and symbolic harmony. The debate surrounding the site continues. Scholars examine the angles, the stone composition, and nearby artifacts, striving to reconstruct a story lost in time. Every hypothesis, whether practical, ceremonial, or speculative, carries weight. The site is a reminder that history is not always neat or linear. Sometimes mysteries persist, leaving us with questions rather than answers, and that is part of their power. Now imagine walking slowly along the base of the stones. Feel the cool wind brushing against your skin, hear the faint rustle of grass beneath your feet, and notice the subtle markings etched into the stone. As you observe, allow yourself to drift into reflection. The doorway, silent yet eloquent, carries the patience of millennia. It invites contemplation, curiosity, and an appreciation for human effort across time. Think of the ceremonies that might have taken place here. Gatherings in the open air, fires lit at dusk, people forming circles around the monoliths, their chants rising softly into the night. Perhaps they celebrated the cycles of the sun and moon, honored ancestors, or marked passages in life. Every ritual, Every step taken around the stones imbued the doorway with meaning and significance, and yet the doorway remains open to interpretation. Its true purpose, like the whispers of the past, is veiled in silence. This ambiguity, rather than frustrating us, invites a gentle curiosity. It encourages patience, observation, and reflection. The stones have endured for thousands of years, and in their quiet persistence they teach us to slow down, to appreciate subtlety, and to listen to the stories embedded in the world around us. As night approaches over the Kazakh steppe, the doorway is bathed in soft twilight. Shadows deepen the grooves and carvings, revealing details previously unnoticed. In this calm you may imagine the people who built it, the hands that shaped the stone, the care and reverence invested in every cut. You may imagine the countless sunsets that have passed since, the winds that have whispered across the stones, and the silent guardianship of the doorway as it watches over the land. Bronze Montefortino helmet recovered from Battle of the Aegides site. Along the sparkling waters of the Aegides Islands, where the waves lap gently against rocky shores, and the horizon blends sky and sea in soft hues of blue and gold, archaeologists have uncovered a relic that carries the weight of ancient conflict and the quiet dignity of human craftsmanship. It is a Montefortino helmet, forged from bronze, its surface bearing the marks of battle and the passage of centuries, yet preserved with remarkable care beneath layers of silt and sediment. The helmet tells a story not only of warfare, but of the people who wore it, the hands that shaped it, and the moments of tension, courage, and resolve that defined its life. Unlike ordinary objects, the Montefortino helmet is both practical and symbolic. Its rounded shape, sturdy construction, and careful design provided protection in the chaos of battle, while its very form signified the status and identity of the warrior within the Roman military hierarchy. Recovered from the seabed near the site of the historic Battle of the Aegides, the helmet lay quietly for over 2,000 years. The battle, a pivotal moment in the First Punic War, was fought between the fleets of Rome and Carthage, shaping the course of Mediterranean history. This helmet, once worn by a soldier navigating the tension of oars and swords, now rests silently beneath the watchful eyes of modern archaeologists, offering a tangible link to courage, strategy, and the endurance of human endeavor. As we explore the helmet, consider the precision and skill required to craft such a piece. The bronze was hammered and shaped to provide optimal protection without hindering mobility. Each curve was intentional, each thickness calculated to withstand strikes while remaining manageable for the wearer. The surface bears scratches, small dents, and traces of corrosion, a record of combat, time, and the environment in which it rested. These marks are not imperfections, they are the history of the object itself, recording moments of tension, fear, and determination. Imagine for a moment the soldier who wore this helmet. He may have stood at the bow of a trireme, the wind whipping against his face, the waves tossing the ship, and the cries of comrades and enemies mingling into a chaotic chorus. Each movement, each decision, was a matter of survival. Yet despite the intensity of battle, the helmet served its purpose, protecting its wearer and allowing him to continue, to fight, and to endure. It is a reminder that even in the most extreme circumstances, human ingenuity and craftsmanship provide security and a sense of order. The context of the discovery adds layers to its story. Submerged beneath the waters of the Aegides Islands, the helmet lay untouched, shielded from human interference for centuries. Layers of sediment and marine growth both obscured and preserved it. Recovery required delicate excavation, careful brushing, and constant attention to detail, as even the slightest pressure could damage the centuries-old bronze. Each artifact recovered from the site is a dialogue with the past, a whisper of history carried forward into the present. Beyond the technical aspects, the helmet invites reflection on the broader human experience. Warfare is often understood in terms of strategy, politics, and territory, yet objects like this Montefortino helmet tell the personal stories of those who participated. They remind us that behind every historical event are individual lives, moments of bravery, fear, hope, and determination. This helmet is a witness to those moments, silent yet eloquent, offering insight into the resilience of the human spirit. Consider also the symbolism embedded within the design. Roman military equipment was not purely functional, it conveyed identity, hierarchy, and the cohesion of the legion. The Montefortino helmet, with its distinctive shape and sometimes decorated features, allowed soldiers to recognize allies, assert authority, and participate in a shared cultural and martial identity. The artistry of the helmet thus extends beyond mere protection, reflecting values, societal structure, and shared traditions. As we reflect on the helmet's journey from creation to discovery, it is remarkable to consider the span of time it has witnessed. Centuries of quiet rest beneath water, storms passing overhead, the slow accumulation of marine deposits, and finally the careful hand of an archaeologist, uncovering its form. Each phase adds to the narrative, connecting past and present in a continuous thread. The helmet becomes more than an object. It becomes a vessel of history, memory, and human experience. Visualize holding the helmet in your hands, feeling the weight of bronze, the curves shaped for protection, and the subtle marks left by time. It is heavy with history, yet gentle in the lessons it offers. It teaches patience, observation, and the value of careful preservation. Each dent or scratch is a story. Each curve is a reflection of human skill. By studying it, we gain insight into lives lived, battles fought, and civilizations shaped by both conflict and creativity. Imagine walking along the shores near the excavation site. The waves lap rhythmically against the sand and rock, echoing faintly the movement of ancient ships across these waters. You can almost hear the murmurs of planning, the commands of officers, the creak of oars, and the clash of metal. The helmet, though silent now, carries the essence of those sounds and moments, inviting us to listen, imagine, and reflect. This Montefortino helmet reminds us that history is not only in grand monuments or written records, it is also in objects, small yet significant, preserved by time and circumstance. These artifacts allow us to connect intimately with the past, to feel the weight of human endeavor, and to appreciate the care, skill, and courage of individuals long gone. Each discovery offers both insight and inspiration, a meditation on endurance, craftsmanship, and the subtle interplay between human life and the world around it. As the sun sets over the Agatis Islands, casting soft light across the water, the helmet rests in its display case, or conservation studio, still heavy with the weight of its story. Its journey from battlefield to seabed, and finally to careful study, reminds us that history is patient. It waits quietly, allowing those who seek it to discover, reflect, and imagine. Allow yourself to drift with this story. Picture the helmet's shape, the glint of bronze, the careful work of ancient artisans, and the soldier who once relied on it for survival. Let the sound of waves, the gentle rhythm of the narrative, and the weight of time carry you into calm reflection. This is more than a helmet. It is a bridge across centuries, connecting human experience, skill, and resilience in a quiet, enduring story. The bronze Montefortino helmet of the Agates battle site endures as a symbol of history, patience, and human ingenuity. Its presence reminds us to slow our thoughts, observe the past with care, and listen to the silent wisdom carried through time. Oldest preserved lamp wicks illuminate 4,000-year-old burial practices. In the arid landscapes of ancient Egypt, where the desert stretches endlessly and the Nile's waters have nurtured civilizations for millennia, archaeologists have uncovered something both small and profound: the oldest preserved lamp wicks, dating back over 4,000 years. These simple strands, once lit to illuminate tombs and sacred spaces, offer a delicate glimpse into the rituals and beliefs surrounding death, remembrance, and the afterlife. At first glance, a lamp wick may seem trivial, easily overlooked among grand tombs and towering monuments. Yet, in their careful preservation, these fragile remnants tell a story of human ingenuity, devotion, and the quiet reverence of ancient cultures. Made from plant fibers, carefully twisted and treated, these wicks once carried light into the dark chambers of burial sites, guiding spirits and honoring the departed. The discovery was made during a routine excavation of a burial mound in Upper Egypt. Beneath layers of sand and centuries of accumulated dust, archaeologists carefully unearthed small ceramic lamps, their clay surfaces etched with faint patterns, still containing remnants of charred wicks. Each lamp, though simple in form, is a testament to the care and attention given to the rituals of the dead. These lamps were more than practical objects. They were integral to burial practices, part of ceremonies meant to accompany the deceased into the afterlife. Light held profound symbolic meaning. It represented guidance, protection, and the presence of divine power. The careful placement of lamps within tombs ensured that the departed would never walk alone. Their journey illuminated both physically and spiritually. Imagine the hands of the artisans who made these wicks, each fiber carefully selected, twisted, and placed into a clay lamp. These were not hurried tasks. They were deliberate, thoughtful acts, reflecting a culture deeply attuned to the cycles of life and death, the sacred and the mundane. The wicks, though small, became vessels for both flame and meaning, bridging the material world and the unseen. As researchers studied the charred remains, they discovered traces of oils and resins used to enhance burning and longevity. These materials were chosen with intention, selected not only for their ability to produce light, but for their aroma and their symbolic significance. The combination of wick and oil created a gentle, persistent flame, one that could illuminate tombs for hours, guiding spirits through the darkness. The context of the lamps adds depth to their story. Many were found in family tombs, alongside pottery, jewelry, and offerings of food. Each lamp was placed with care, positioned near the head, feet, or along the walls, suggesting a ceremonial understanding of placement and purpose. The arrangement of these lamps speaks to the structured belief systems of ancient Egypt, where ritual and symbolism intertwined seamlessly with daily life and death. Consider the quiet moments of these ceremonies. Long ago, when priests and family members prepared the tomb, lit the lamps, and recited prayers, the soft flicker of flame would cast moving shadows across carved walls, illuminating hieroglyphs that told of gods, journeys, and the eternal nature of the soul. In these intimate moments, light and devotion merged, creating an atmosphere of reverence and reflection. The preservation of these wicks is remarkable. Despite the passage of 4 millennia, the fibers retain their structure, allowing modern scientists to study their composition and methods of preparation. Advanced analysis has revealed the types of plant materials used, the oils applied, and even traces of incense or aromatic substances that would have accompanied the flame. Each detail adds layers to our understanding, revealing not just how these lamps functioned, but why they mattered so deeply. The lamps also offer insight into the broader cultural and technological context of the time. Crafting a wick that could burn steadily required knowledge, skill, and experimentation. The ancient Egyptians, attentive to the needs of the spirit world, invested effort in perfecting these small but crucial tools. The act of lighting a lamp was not only functional, it was symbolic, a gesture of care and devotion that bridged life and afterlife. Visualize walking through a tomb illuminated by these tiny flames. The air is still, the shadows shifting gently on carved walls and painted surfaces. Every flicker of light reveals details, offerings, inscriptions, the contours of the tomb itself. In that quiet glow, the presence of those who once lived, prayed, and prepared for eternity becomes almost tangible. The lamps become guides, not just for the deceased, but for anyone seeking to connect with the past. These discoveries remind us that history is not only monumental, it resides in small, often overlooked objects, lamp wicks, fragments of pottery, or simple tools, each carrying stories of human experience, belief, and care. The preserved wicks teach us patience, attention to detail, and the significance of even the smallest acts in shaping rituals that endure through millennia. As the narrative unfolds, we reflect on the enduring power of light, both literal and metaphorical. The wicks illuminate tombs, but they also illuminate our understanding of ancient culture, revealing the deep connection between humans and the sacred. They speak of preparation, guidance, and reverence, quietly teaching us about the ways in which civilizations have honored life, death, and the journey beyond. Allow your mind to wander slowly through these ancient chambers, imagining the soft glow of countless tiny flames flickering against carved stone, the fragrance of oils and incense mingling with the dry desert air. Each lamp, though small, carries immense meaning, gently guiding the soul of the departed, and inviting us to witness the care, thought, and devotion of people long gone. The oldest preserved lamp wicks, though delicate and humble, illuminate far more than tombs. They illuminate the human experience, the persistence of ritual, and the timeless desire to connect the mortal with the eternal. As you settle into the rhythm of the story, let the quiet patience of these ancient lights guide your thoughts, your breathing, and your awareness, leading you gently into calm reflection. By observing, imagining, and understanding, we honor the people who lived, worked, and prepared for eternity thousands of years ago. We acknowledge their skill, their devotion, and their enduring presence through these small luminous artifacts. And as the flame of our imagination dances softly alongside these ancient wicks, we recognize that history is never truly silent. It waits, patiently, to be noticed, appreciated, and remembered. The lamps preserved for millennia now serve as bridges across time, connecting us to those who shaped, observed, and honored the past. Their light, though small, casts long shadows across history, teaching lessons of care, reflection, and reverence that remain as relevant today as they were 4,000 years ago. Early humans defied Britain's harshest ice age, 440,000 years ago. Long before cities, roads, and written history, Britain was a land of relentless ice and unyielding cold. Stretching across vast plains and river valleys, the landscape was transformed by glaciers, frozen winds, and snow that seemed to last forever. And yet, amid this harsh, unforgiving environment, evidence now reveals that early humans did more than simply survive. They adapted, innovated, and endured in ways that challenge our understanding of prehistoric life. Archaeologists studying sites across southern and central England have uncovered stone tools, animal remains, and signs of temporary shelters dating back 440,000 years. These discoveries paint a vivid picture of human resilience during a time when temperatures could plummet far below freezing, and survival demanded creativity, courage, and careful observation of the natural world. Imagine a small group of early humans huddled near a flickering fire, the wind whistling across a frozen plain. Every breath creates a mist in the air. Every movement must be deliberate, measured, and mindful of the dangers posed by predators, ice, and hunger. In this world, stone tools were not just instruments, they were lifelines. Hand axes, scrapers, and flint knives were meticulously shaped from local materials, their forms optimized for butchering, cutting, and even protection. Each tool is a testament to skill, intelligence, and the ability to plan for both immediate survival and the uncertain days ahead. The archaeological record reveals remarkable ingenuity. Bones of animals, such as mammoths, deer, and horses, show marks indicating careful butchery. Early humans understood the anatomy of the animals they hunted, maximizing the resources available to them. Meat, marrow, hides, and sinew were all utilized, Even in an environment that seemed hostile beyond comprehension, nothing was wasted. This reflects not only practical survival, but also a profound relationship with the world around them, a deep awareness of their surroundings, and the rhythms of life, even under ice. Climate reconstruction suggests that this period represented the harshest ice age Britain had experienced in hundreds of thousands of years. Glaciers advanced slowly across valleys, rivers froze or shifted course, and vegetation became sparse. Trees were scarce, and many species of animals migrated or vanished entirely. Yet humans remained present, moving strategically across the landscape, seeking shelter, resources, and safety. Their persistence reveals an extraordinary resilience, a capacity to endure and adapt when conditions seemed almost impossible. Consider the daily life of these early inhabitants. Dawn would bring freezing temperatures and pale light reflecting off the ice. Fires had to be maintained with great care, kindling gathered from scarce sources, the smoke providing not only warmth, but also a signal of habitation. Food had to be hunted or scavenged, water collected from slowly thawing streams, and shelters reinforced against the biting winds. Every day was a series of decisions, balancing risk and reward, ingenuity and instinct. The tools and remains also hint at social structures. Groups likely shared tasks, coordinated hunts, and communicated in ways that strengthened their survival. Even in silence, gestures, actions, and shared experience would have created cohesion. Survival in extreme climates is rarely the work of a single individual. It requires collaboration, understanding, and a shared rhythm of life that allows a group to persist when the world itself is harsh and indifferent. Archaeological analysis of wear patterns on stone tools and animal bones suggests that early humans had mastered techniques for processing meat efficiently. They could extract marrow from bones, craft clothing from hides, and use fire to extend the day, cook food, and ward off predators. This knowledge, developed through observation, trial, and careful experimentation, reveals the depth of human intelligence long before the advent of written records. Each tool and mark left in the soil is a whisper from the past, a guide to understanding how life was lived under conditions that seem unimaginable today. Visualize walking along the frost-covered plains, alongside these early humans. Hear the distant calls of birds, the rustle of fur and foliage, the crackle of fire, and the low murmurs of conversation. Witness the careful placement of tools, the shared tending of fires, the constant observation of weather and wildlife. In this environment, survival demanded awareness, adaptation, and respect for forces larger than themselves. Yet, amid all of this, there is also evidence of small moments of care, planning, and even creativity. These humans were not simply reacting, they were thinking, learning, and shaping their world. The findings in Britain also suggest a broader understanding of migration and endurance. Early humans were not stationary. They followed resources, sought temporary shelter, and left traces of their passage across landscapes now covered in grass and soil. Their movement patterns hint at sophisticated decision-making, knowledge of terrain, and anticipation of environmental changes. Even in the harshest ice age, mobility was not random, it was deliberate and informed. As the glaciers slowly retreated and the climate shifted, these early humans adapted once more, leaving behind a record of resilience that survives in stone tools, butchered bones, and the traces of habitation in frozen soils. Each artifact recovered is more than a tool or remnant. It is a testament to human endurance, creativity, and the capacity to face adversity with skill and foresight. Consider, finally, the lessons these discoveries offer for us today. In an environment that was relentlessly challenging, early humans thrived by observing carefully, planning wisely, and working together. Their lives, though far removed from our own, remind us that human ingenuity and persistence are enduring qualities. Every mark in the soil, every carefully shaped tool, and every preserved bone tells a story of adaptation, survival, and the quiet power of resilience. As you imagine the frost-covered landscapes, the fires flickering in small shelters, and the careful shaping of stone tools, allow your mind to settle. The past speaks not only through grand monuments, but also through these small, enduring traces of human life. Their story unfolds slowly, patiently, teaching us about perseverance, attention, and the subtle rhythms of living in harmony with the environment. The early humans of Britain, defying the harshest ice age, leave behind not only a record of survival, but a gentle invitation to reflect on the persistence, care, and ingenuity that defines humanity. Their world may have been cold, barren, and dangerous, but they endured, leaving traces that still speak to us today. In these traces we find guidance, inspiration, and a quiet sense of connection to those who walked this land over 400,000 years ago. Late medieval artillery recovered from Danish flagship Gribshunden, off the rugged coast of southern Denmark, beneath the waves of the Baltic Sea, lies a story preserved in silence for over 500 years. In the year 1495, a magnificent ship, known as the Gribshunden, set sail as the flagship of King Hans of Denmark. It carried warriors, nobles, and most notably the early forms of artillery that marked a turning point in naval warfare. Time and tide have long hidden this vessel, but recent archaeological discoveries have brought its story back to light, revealing both technological innovation and the human narratives entwined with it. The Gribshunden, sometimes referred to as the Griffin Hound, was no ordinary ship. It was a symbol of power, prestige, and military ambition. Decked with carvings, banners, and armor, it embodied the authority of the Danish crown. Among its most remarkable features were the artillery pieces it carried, iron cannons, meticulously crafted, designed to dominate the seas and protect the kingdom's interests. These early weapons were heavy, cumbersome, and dangerous, yet their presence on a ship demonstrated a profound understanding of engineering, strategy, and the evolving nature of warfare in the late medieval period. When the wreck was first located centuries later, archaeologists approached with care, mindful of the fragile interplay between wood, iron, and the Baltic's cold, oxygen-poor waters. Preservation in these conditions is exceptional. Organic materials like the wooden hull, rigging, and even fragments of clothing remained intact alongside the corroded but recognizable cannons. Each artifact recovered tells a story, not just of a ship or its weaponry, but of the people who built it, sailed it, and relied on it to assert their presence in a turbulent world. Consider the life aboard the Gribshunden. Sailors worked tirelessly to manage the sails, maintain the hull, and operate the ship's early artillery. The cannons required coordination, skill, and immense strength. Loading, aiming, and firing these weapons was a process fraught with danger. Accidents could be fatal, and yet these men persevered, driven by duty, loyalty, and the necessity of survival in a world defined by political and military conflicts. The archaeological evidence shows that the ship carried a variety of cannons, each designed for different purposes. Small, portable swivel guns were intended for close combat, defending against boarding parties. Larger, heavier cannons projected power across the water, capable of sinking enemy ships from a distance. The precise placement of these weapons on deck reveals careful planning, an understanding of balance and stability, and the beginnings of what would become modern naval strategy. Yet the story of the Gribshunden is not only one of military technology, it is also a story of human presence, of daily life aboard a vessel caught between ambition and nature. Personal items, fragments of clothing, and the remains of meals tell us about the sailors and passengers, their routines, their struggles, and their moments of respite. Even as the ship prepared for battle, its crew found ways to navigate the monotony, danger, and unpredictability of life at sea. As the centuries passed, the Gribshunden sank, likely due to a storm or navigational error. Resting quietly on the seabed, the cannons once loud and powerful became silent. The wooden hull, weathered by waves, held its shape, protecting countless stories hidden within its structure. When modern archaeologists discovered the site, they were confronted not only with metal and timber, but with the echoes of a long-forgotten world. A world where human skill, courage, and innovation intersected with the vast, unpredictable forces of nature. The excavation process itself is a delicate dance. Divers carefully map each piece of the wreck, documenting the location of cannons, barrels, and personal artifacts. Conservation specialists work to stabilize corroded metal and fragile wood, ensuring that these remnants of history endure. Every decision is made with patience and precision, reflecting the same attention to detail that the original shipbuilders invested centuries earlier. Analysis of the recovered artillery has shed light on the evolution of weaponry. Metallurgical studies reveal techniques used to cast and forge iron, while historical records confirm the strategic importance of such weapons in late medieval naval campaigns. Each cannon represents not just a tool of war, but also the ingenuity of craftsmen, the demands of kings, and the ever-present tension between technology and human lives. Imagine the Gribshunden, as it once was, cutting through the waters of the Baltic, its sails full, cannons primed, crew alert. The sound of waves against the hull, the creaking of ropes, and the occasional shout of a sailor echo across time. The cannons, cold and silent today, once roared with thunder, asserting dominance, protecting lives, and altering the course of history. Each recovered artifact connects us to that moment, allowing us to trace the movements, decisions, and experiences of those who lived aboard. Even the smallest finds, the fragments of rope, a wooden peg, or a piece of metal, carry meaning. They reveal the day-to-day operations, the improvisations, and the resilience required to survive in a hostile and unpredictable environment. These tiny traces, combined with the monumental cannons and the ship's structure, create a tapestry of life, reflecting both human ambition and vulnerability. The Gribshunden story extends beyond Denmark. It speaks to broader patterns in European maritime history, the rise of naval power, the integration of technology into daily life, and the interplay between human ambition and natural forces. Its cannons mark a turning point, a step toward the modern understanding of naval warfare, while its preserved hull and artifacts remind us of the people behind these innovations, the sailors, carpenters, officers, and passengers who navigated both waters and history. As we reflect on these discoveries, allow your thoughts to drift slowly over the calm, cold Baltic waters. Picture the silent seabed, where the Gribshunden rests, the cannons lying in stillness, the wooden beams holding countless stories. Imagine the hands of divers, gently uncovering centuries-old artifacts, and the care taken to preserve every fragment. Through these efforts, the echoes of the past reach us, bridging time and space, whispering stories of courage, innovation, and human endurance. The recovered artillery, preserved through centuries, is more than just weaponry. It is a connection to human creativity, strategic thinking, and survival in a complex and often dangerous world. Every cannon, every fragment, every personal artifact contributes to a fuller understanding of life aboard the Gribshunden and the broader tapestry of late medieval Europe. As you settle into the rhythm of this story, let the quiet persistence of history guide your thoughts. The Gribshunden, once a symbol of power and war, now rests in peaceful silence, sharing its secrets slowly, patiently, and deliberately. In these whispers, we find lessons of patience, skill, and humanity, carried across the waves for centuries. And so the tale of the Gribshunden, its cannons, and the people who sailed upon it, invites reflection, wonder, and calm. In its quiet persistence, it reminds us that history endures not only in monuments and manuscripts, but in the silent, meticulous craft of both the past and those who seek to uncover it. Sophisticated water pipeline reveals a 1,500-year-old engineering marvel. Beneath the dry soil of an ancient landscape, archaeologists uncovered something that seemed at first almost impossible: a network of stone and clay pipes running silently beneath the earth. At first glance, they appeared simple, ordinary, but as the excavation deepened, the truth began to unfold. What they had found was no crude channel or forgotten ditch. It was a sophisticated water system, built more than 15 centuries ago, at a time when much of the world still struggled to master even the most basic infrastructure. This discovery was made in the ruins of an ancient settlement, where water had always been life itself. The land around was harsh, summers long and dry, the air filled with dust, and rivers often running low. For people to have thrived here, they needed not just luck or faith, but ingenuity. And what they created, buried in silence for centuries, was a marvel of precision, planning, and skill, a water pipeline that revealed just how advanced our ancestors truly were. When archaeologists first began brushing away the soil, they noticed the stones were not randomly placed. Each section fit perfectly with the next, shaped by human hands and aligned with such accuracy that even today water could flow through it with ease. The pipeline stretched for kilometers, weaving through valleys and hills, maintaining a near-perfect gradient, a feat of mathematics and engineering that still puzzles modern researchers. The stones themselves told stories. Some bore marks from tools, deliberate grooves that allowed them to lock together like the pieces of a puzzle. Others were coated with a layer of ancient lime, used as sealant to keep the joints watertight. As the sun set over the excavation site and shadows stretched across the ruins, the archaeologists realized they were standing above the remains of something extraordinary, a living system that once carried the heartbeat of a civilization. The people who built this system did not have machines. There were no steel drills, no GPS mapping, no electricity. Every stone was cut by hand, every section laid through observation, experience, and shared knowledge. It took not just strength, but generations of trial and error to perfect. They knew the land intimately, where the water would rise, where it would seep, how to guide it across uneven terrain without losing a drop. At the source of the system, a spring still trickled faintly through the rock. The water was cool and clear, filtered naturally by the earth. From there, the pipeline ran downhill, through open channels and buried conduits, distributing water to fields, baths, fountains, and even distant households. The scale of coordination was immense. This was not the work of one builder or one king. It was a community's shared achievement, built to last lifetimes. When the team traced the line further, they uncovered chambers, stone reservoirs that once stored water, allowing the system to balance itself during droughts or floods. These cisterns were carved deep into the bedrock, lined with waterproof plaster, and capped with stone lids to keep the water clean. The layout reflected an understanding of hydraulic principles centuries ahead of its time. It was, in every sense, an engineering marvel, hidden beneath centuries of silence. As the excavation continued, small discoveries brought the ancient world to life. Fragments of tools, pottery shards, and even the remains of wooden supports used during construction. Each item gave a glimpse into the daily life of those who built and maintained the pipeline. They were not merely laborers, they were engineers, craftsmen, problem solvers, working in harmony with the natural world. Imagine for a moment the sound of that ancient world, the steady rush of water through the stone channels, the rhythmic tapping of chisels shaping rock, the voices of workers echoing across the valley as they measured, adjusted, and refined. For them, this was not simply about survival, it was about mastery. About proving that even in a land of scarcity, human hands and minds could bend nature to serve both need and beauty. When scientists studied the alignment of the pipes, they were astonished. The gradient, the angle at which the pipeline descended, was almost mathematically perfect. too steep, and the water would rush uncontrollably, eroding the stone; too shallow, and it would stagnate. But here the flow was balanced, gentle, steady, and continuous. It's a level of precision that rivals modern infrastructure. Chemical analysis of mineral deposits inside the pipeline revealed that it had been in use for centuries before it was eventually abandoned. The people who inherited it continued to repair and extend it, showing how vital it remained to their survival. Even as kingdoms rose and fell, and empires changed hands, the water still flowed quietly, steadily, through the veins of the earth. What stands out most about this discovery is not just the craftsmanship, but the foresight. The builders understood sustainability in a way that feels deeply relevant even now. They designed the system to last, to coexist with the landscape rather than dominate it. The materials were local, the construction respected natural contours. It was in essence a partnership between humanity and nature, a lesson modern civilization still struggles to embrace. Among the more curious finds were inscriptions carved into the stone along parts of the channel. Some were symbols, others brief messages, names perhaps, or measurements, or blessings for the water's journey. One section contained a faint carving of what appeared to be a sun over rippling waves, a simple but powerful image, light over life, water over stone. As the excavators mapped the site, they began to realize that this system was not an isolated project. It connected to a wider network: aqueducts, wells, fountains, and irrigation fields. Together they formed an intricate web that sustained entire communities. This discovery reshaped our understanding of the region's history, revealing a civilization not primitive or isolated, but intelligent, organized, and capable of remarkable feats of design. When night fell over the dig site, the air cooled, and the team would often sit by the faint sound of the spring still running nearby. They'd speak softly, aware that beneath their feet lay a structure older than most nations, crafted by hands long gone, yet still performing the same eternal purpose: carrying water, sustaining life, bridging past and present. There's something deeply human about the image of water flowing through stone, the contrast between movement and permanence, life and stillness. The people who built this pipeline may not have known that their work would outlast them by a millennium and a half, but they understood something timeless: that to preserve life, one must respect the balance of the earth. Today, portions of the pipeline have been restored for study and preservation. Archaeologists and engineers collaborate to analyze its structure, uncovering lessons that still inform modern design. The techniques of fitting, sealing, and aligning stone remain surprisingly effective, reminders that innovation does not always mean invention. Sometimes, it means remembering what once worked so well. Standing by the exposed channel, you can almost imagine the builders themselves, their hands roughened by labor, their eyes fixed on the line of the horizon as they set each stone with care. The sound of trickling water returns, steady and eternal. The same water that once filled their wells, quenched their thirst, and nourished their crops, still moves beneath the soil, whispering stories of endurance, skill, and harmony. The bronze sickle beneath the soil. In a quiet field in northern France where the wind moves softly through the grass, and the air smells faintly of rain and earth, a small discovery began to rewrite a piece of human history. It wasn't gold, it wasn't a crown, or a statue, or anything one would call beautiful at first glance. It was a small curved blade, greened by time, dulled by centuries, a Bronze Age sickle. But not just any sickle. This one had come from somewhere else, somewhere across the sea. The archaeologists who uncovered it almost didn't notice it at first. It was half buried beneath a layer of ancient soil, lying quietly among the remains of pottery and stone. The excavation team had been studying what they believed to be an old agricultural settlement. Small, simple, unremarkable. But when the sickle appeared, something about it felt different. Its shape, its craftsmanship, the alloy used in its making, all pointed to a place far from France, a place across the channel. When they tested the metal composition, the results confirmed what they had suspected. The bronze was not local. The ratio of tin and copper matched the kind used in southern Britain around 3,000 years ago. That meant this small farming tool, lost, forgotten, and buried for millennia, had crossed the waters between Britain and the European continent during the Bronze Age. It's hard to imagine, but back then the English Channel wasn't a barrier. It was a bridge, a living waterway, where trade, ideas, and stories flowed freely. And somewhere among the movement of people and goods, this small bronze sickle made its journey. The field where it was found sits in a part of France that has seen countless generations pass: Celts, Romans, farmers, soldiers. Yet the soil here has a way of keeping secrets. The sickle had rested in darkness for over 3,000 years, its edge worn smooth, its handle long decayed, its story waiting. When the archaeologists held it up to the light for the first time, they were struck by its craftsmanship. The curve of the blade was elegant, practical, designed for harvesting grain, cutting grass, or gathering herbs. But there was something more. Along the inner edge, faint marks could still be seen, decorative lines etched by hand. Whoever made it hadn't just forged a tool, they had made something with care, perhaps even pride. It's strange how much a small object can reveal. A sickle is a symbol of harvest, of life, of the bond between humans and the earth. It's one of the oldest tools in our history, one that shaped civilizations long before iron or steel ever existed. And yet, in this single curved piece of bronze, we see something more than agriculture. We see connection, trade, human curiosity that reached across seas. To picture the world of the sickle, we must go back around 1200 BCE, to a time when bronze was precious, and every tool represented both survival and skill. On the southern coast of Britain, small communities thrived near rivers and cliffs, living by farming, herding, and trade. They smelted bronze in clay furnaces, using bellows made from animal hides to fan the flames. The process was long, almost ritualistic, turning raw stone into gleaming metal. Once cooled and shaped, each tool carried a story. Some were traded for food or pottery, others were gifted, or even offered to the gods in ceremonies lost to time. It's possible that this sickle was once part of such an exchange. A traveler, a craftsman, or perhaps a merchant carried it aboard a small wooden boat, crossing the rough waters between Britain and Gaul. Maybe it was a gift, maybe it was a trade, or maybe it was just something someone needed to make a living in a new land. The people of that era were far more connected than we often imagine. The English Channel was busy with life, with traders, farmers, and explorers who crossed back and forth in small boats made of planks and hide. They carried not only bronze tools but also ideas, new ways of farming, building, and living. Every journey carried something that would eventually change a community forever. The sickle's presence in France suggests something important, that these connections were not rare, they were part of everyday life. The discovery also hints at the early beginnings of organized trade, where objects traveled hundreds of miles, linking cultures long before the written word. The soil surrounding the sickle contained traces of carbonized seeds, remnants of crops that had once grown there: barley, wheat, perhaps millet. These were the crops of survival, the very reason the sickle existed. It might have belonged to a farmer who worked the land, harvesting the golden grain that sustained his family. The handle, likely made of wood, has long since disappeared, but the blade endures, a quiet testament to labor and life. As researchers studied it, they found signs of wear, scratches, dents, and a faint bend along the edge. This wasn't a ceremonial piece, it was a tool that had seen real use, shaped by the rhythm of work. That makes it all the more human. You can imagine the hand that held it, the swing of the arm, the sound of stalks snapping beneath its edge, and the warmth of the sun above. And then perhaps one day it was dropped, lost in the soil, maybe during harvest, maybe in a storm, and the earth, as it often does, took it in, layer by layer, year by year. It vanished into time, until now. The discovery also speaks to something larger, the reach of human craftsmanship during the Bronze Age. For such a small tool to have traveled such a distance means there was an organized network of movement. Tin from Cornwall, copper from Wales or Ireland, finished tools crossing into France. These were not random events, they were part of an ancient economy. And yet there is another layer of meaning. The sickle was not only practical. In ancient belief, it was symbolic. Across many early cultures, the sickle was associated with the moon, with harvest deities, even with cycles of life and death. Its crescent shape mirrored the phases of the moon: birth, growth, decay, and renewal. In some rituals, bronze sickles were offered to the gods to ensure a good harvest or safe passage through the seasons. Could this one have been part of such a rite, or was it simply lost during ordinary work? We may never know, but both possibilities carry their own quiet beauty. Archaeologists often speak about the small finds, objects that don't glitter, but carry immense meaning. The sickle is one of them. Unlike golden jewelry or sculpted idols, it represents daily life, the unspoken effort of countless hands that fed communities and built civilizations. It reminds us that the history of humanity is not only written by kings or warriors, but by farmers and craftsmen, whose tools became the true engines of progress. The team studying the site noted something remarkable. The surrounding area showed evidence of long-term settlement, traces of post holes, hearths, animal bones, and even fragments of pottery from different cultures. That means people had lived here continuously, adapting, trading, surviving, generation after generation. The sickle became a symbol of that continuity. As the research expanded, scientists began to piece together a map of Bronze Age trade routes. Lines stretched from Britain across the Channel into northern France, then inland toward the heart of Europe. Along these routes flowed not only goods but language, belief, and shared knowledge. Every traded object, a blade, a pot, a bead, carried invisible threads that connected distant communities. The more you think about it, the more powerful that connection becomes. Thousands of years ago, someone shaped this piece of metal, carried it across the sea, and left it in a field. And now, thousands of years later, we hold it again. The same metal, the same curve, the same touch of human thought, bridging time like a silent conversation across ages. The shadows before us, the mystery of the million-year-old tools. In the far reaches of East Africa, under the golden heat of the ancient sun, the earth holds stories so old that they almost hum when the wind passes over them. Stories of a time long before us, before civilization, before language, before even the people we would recognize as human. It began with stone, small, unremarkable shapes, half buried in the red dust near a dried riverbed. A team of archaeologists was surveying the site, moving slowly under the weight of the heat, when one of them noticed something different in the soil. A sharp edge, unnaturally perfect. It was the edge of a stone tool. At first glance it might have looked ordinary, just another ancient flake chipped away by early humans. But when the researchers began to date the surrounding layers of sediment, they realized something almost unbelievable. The tools were over 1,000,000 years old. That meant they were older than Homo sapiens, older even than our most direct ancestors, the Neanderthals or Homo erectus. These tools, simple but precise, had been made by a species we did not yet know. It's a strange thought, isn't it? To imagine hands, not ours, shaping stone, thinking, planning, surviving. Hands that belong to a being whose name we have never spoken, whose face we can never picture, but who lived, struggled and built, long before we appeared. The discovery was made in the Afar region of Ethiopia, a landscape that has given birth to some of the most important finds in human history. The same land where Lucy was found, the famous Australopithecus skeleton that redefined our understanding of human evolution. But this was something older still. The tools, flakes, cores, and shaped pieces of stone were primitive yet deliberate. Each mark was purposeful. Someone, 1,000,000 years ago, had chosen a stone, struck it, shaped it, and used it to cut or scrape or dig. That act, that small thoughtful act, was the beginning of human technology. As the archaeologists brushed away the dust, they could almost feel the weight of time pressing around them. Every artifact was a whisper from a world that no longer exists. And yet the mystery deepened. Who had made them? They were too advanced to have been crafted by the earlier species known as Australopithecus, the upright ape-like beings who lived several million years ago. But they were older than Homo erectus, the species long believed to be the first great toolmaker. This left a gap, a missing link in our story. A ghost species, known only through its creations. Some scientists suggested that the makers might have been a species called Homo habilis, the handyman, known for using simple tools nearly 2,000,000 years ago. Others believed it could be an even more ancient offshoot, perhaps a cousin of early humans who branched off and vanished without a trace. Whatever they were, they had intelligence, they had purpose, they had the spark of something that would one day become us. When you imagine this world, it's not the world we know. There were no words, no fire, no art. The nights were cold and endless, the days spent in survival. Yet somewhere in that wilderness, a creature sat with a stone and began to shape it, to think of what it could be. That right there was the birth of human imagination. The site revealed thousands of artifacts, scattered over a wide area. Some stones showed repeated use, chipped and reshaped over time. There were signs of animal bones nearby too, many with cut marks, evidence that these ancient toolmakers had hunted, or scavenged, or perhaps worked together to share food. When scientists studied the wear patterns on the tools, they found traces of plant fibers and animal residue, meaning they were used for multiple purposes: butchering, scraping hides, or even shaping wood. It was not chaos, it was adaptation. In the rhythm of their work there was thought. In their repetition, there was memory. It's humbling to think that 1,000,000 years ago someone stood where we stand now, on the same earth, under the same sky, and used their mind to solve a problem. They might not have understood it as invention, but in that moment they were building the foundations of what we would one day become. Even more fascinating is what came next. Further analysis showed that the tools were part of what archaeologists call the Oldowan tradition, the earliest known style of stone tool technology. It's simple, yet effective. Flakes struck off from a larger rock to create sharp edges, but these tools were unusually refined. The flakes were thinner, the angles more precise. The creators knew what they were doing. That raised a haunting question. Had intelligence already begun to evolve earlier than we thought? Perhaps evolution didn't happen in a single straight line, but in waves with different species rising and falling, each contributing something to the story of humanity. Maybe there were other kinds of humans, not quite us, not quite them, who lived, thrived, and disappeared, leaving behind only the stones they shaped. As scientists reconstructed the landscape, they realized how different it must have been. Rivers once flowed through the now dry valley. Herds of animals, elephants, hippos, antelope, roamed freely. Trees provided shade, and the ground was alive with sound. In that world, survival meant awareness. The early toolmakers would have needed to observe, to remember, to plan, to see what others could not. When you picture that ancient scene, you can almost feel the air, heavy with warmth, filled with the cries of distant animals. A small group gathers by the water's edge, their hands busy, their movements sure. The first sparks of cooperation, of community, are visible. One might teach another how to strike the stone. A child might watch, mimicking the motion. Knowledge is passed on, quietly, from one generation to the next. That's the start of everything, the beginning of culture, of learning, of memory itself. But like all beginnings, this one faded. The species that made these tools vanished long ago. Their bones may be gone, their names unknown, their voices forever silent, but their tools endure, the most ancient signatures of thought ever left behind. And when we hold those stones today, in gloved hands under bright laboratory lights, we are touching not just rock but intention, the first hint of the human mind at work. What does that mean for us now? It means that the line between us and them is not as clear as we once believed. It means that we are not a sudden miracle, but the latest chapter in a story millions of years long, a story carved in stone and dust. Every new discovery in this ancient puzzle reshapes our reflection. We realize that humanity isn't defined by where we are now, but by how long we've been learning, shaping, adapting, dreaming. The mystery of the million-year-old tools remains unsolved. We still don't know who made them, but maybe that's the beauty of it. It reminds us that we are part of something larger, a lineage of minds, stretching far beyond memory, beyond even our species. As night falls over the excavation site, the team packs their instruments and turns off the lights. The valley grows quiet again, the same quiet it's known for a million years. The stones lie still, the earth returns to rest, and somewhere in that silence, beneath layers of time, the echo of those first makers lingers, faint but eternal. They are gone, but their presence remains, in every hand that shapes, in every mind that wonders. They live on, the unknown ancestors, the shadowed architects of thought. If you close your eyes, you can almost feel them, not ghosts but kin. You can feel their patience, their curiosity, their persistence against a harsh and endless world. The sacred Maya blue, the color that wouldn't die. There's a color that refuses to fade, a shade so deep, so strangely alive, that even after centuries buried under jungle soil and time, it still glows as if it remembers the hands that made it. That color is known as Maya blue, a pigment so mysterious, so impossibly durable, that for nearly 500 years no one could understand how it was created. Tonight, we're going to travel through that mystery, from the grand temples of ancient Mesoamerica to the hidden caves of the Yucatan, where scientists have finally traced the origin of this sacred blue. So settle back, slow your breathing, and let's drift into a story that begins not with kings or battles, but with color, a color that somehow never dies. It's hard to imagine what life must have looked like in the heart of the Maya world, nearly 1500 years ago. The air was heavy with heat and incense. The cities shimmered with limestone palaces, pyramids rising above the canopy like steps to the heavens. And everywhere in murals, in pottery, on the skin of gods painted for ritual, there was blue, but not just any blue. This was a strange, luminous turquoise, both soft and radiant. It didn't fade under sunlight. It didn't wash away in rain. Even when time buried it, it remained as bright as the day it was painted. To the Maya, this was not a pigment. It was something sacred, a bridge between the earth and the divine. They used it in temples and tombs. They painted it on statues and on the walls of ceremonial chambers. And perhaps most hauntingly, they used it in the rituals of sacrifice, a color believed to guide the spirit from the human world into the world of the gods. For centuries after the Maya cities fell silent, the secret of that color was lost. Archaeologists found fragments of pottery, murals, even offerings still coated in that same bright turquoise hue, but no one could explain why it never faded. How could paint made with clay and plants survive where others turned to dust? That question lingered like a ghost through decades of research. Then sometime in the late 20th century, the first clues began to surface. Scientists noticed that Maya blue wasn't just pigment. It was chemistry, an ancient complex blend of palygorskite clay and indigo dye, heated together to form a bond stronger than time itself. But where had the clay come from, and why had this exact mixture become so sacred? The search led deep into the Yucatan Peninsula, into caves that the Maya once saw as gateways to the underworld, places where the living could speak to the dead. And in one of those caves, hidden for centuries beneath the jungle, researchers found what they had been searching for. Inside the walls of the sacred cenote of Chichen Itza, traces of blue clay were discovered, stained with indigo, a mixture almost identical to the pigment on ancient offerings. Nearby, ceramic bowls still clung to flecks of the same blue dust, as though someone had been mixing it there long ago. It was no workshop, it was a shrine. Imagine it for a moment, a cave lit by torchlight, the air thick with smoke and song. Priests in feathered robes kneel beside the water, stirring bowls of blue pigment, chanting to the gods of rain and renewal. For them this wasn't paint, it was prayer. They believed the color was a gift to Chak, the rain god, the one who brought life to their fields, or withheld it in seasons of drought. Every offering, every vessel dipped in that blue, was part of an ancient promise, to keep the balance between the earth and the sky. When scientists studied those blue traces, they realized just how advanced the Maya had been. The palygorskite clay, for example, was rare, not found everywhere, but mined from specific deposits in the Yucatan. It was heat-resistant, microscopic in structure, and when mixed with indigo from local plants, it locked the color inside the clay's lattice like glass holding light. That's why, even now, Maya blue doesn't fade. It's as if the color has fused with the earth itself. One researcher called it the color of eternity, and it fits, because in some way that's exactly what the Maya were trying to capture. When you look at the murals of Bonampak, or the painted statues of Palenque, or the offerings pulled from sacred wells, you can still see that blue glowing faintly through centuries of darkness. It's more than beauty, it's resilience, a reminder that human hands, long before ours, learned to turn clay and plant and fire into something eternal. It's strange to think that all of this knowledge, chemistry, faith, art, was nearly lost forever. After the Spanish conquest, temples were burned, codices destroyed, and sacred sites buried under churches and towns. But Maya blue endured, quietly, silently, waiting beneath the soil. And when it was finally understood, piece by piece, it gave us something more than pigment. It gave us a glimpse into the mind of a civilization that saw no boundary between science and spirit. For them, every act of creation, whether a painting, a song, or a prayer, was an offering to the universe. In that way, the discovery of the sacred mine was not just archaeological, it was almost spiritual, a rediscovery of how the Maya saw their world. Everything connected, everything alive, even color. If you close your eyes for a moment, you can imagine standing there inside that limestone cave, hearing the slow drip of water echo through the darkness. You can smell the earth, the faint scent of clay and ash. The torches flicker, a breeze moves through, soft as breath. Somewhere in the shadows, a bowl of pigment sits waiting, the same blue that once covered the temples of the gods. It's peaceful there, still, the kind of stillness that feels older than time. Maybe that's why this story feels so soothing, because it reminds us that even in chaos there's a kind of quiet knowledge. The Maya didn't need machines to make something everlasting. They needed patience, faith, and the rhythm of their world. Every stroke of blue was deliberate. Every offering carried meaning. And though centuries have passed, the color remains, unbroken, undimmed, eternal. Today, scientists can reproduce Maya blue in laboratories. They can measure it, name its minerals, understand its reactions. But there's something they still can't quite replicate, the feeling of it, the sense that it was made not just to last, but to speak, as if the color itself remembers. Maybe that's why it's so hypnotic. Because when you look at it, even now, on a fragment of broken pottery, or a temple wall softened by rain, it feels alive, like a whisper from another age, telling us that beauty and mystery can be the same thing. The cave where it was found is quiet again now. The archaeologists have gone, the torches long since extinguished, but the traces of blue still cling to the walls, faint and persistent, glowing softly in the dim light that filters through the entrance. And if you listen closely, in that hush of ancient air, you might almost hear the echo of prayers, the drip of water, the steady heartbeat of a people who painted the spirit of the sky onto stone, the color that would not die, the blue that the rain god once claimed, the memory of a civilization that still lingers, even in silence. The Phoenician secret, ancient hydraulic plaster. Long before the great Roman aqueducts carried water through the cities of Europe, before arches and bridges became the hallmark of engineering brilliance, there was another civilization quietly mastering a craft that would puzzle scholars for centuries. The Phoenicians, known mostly as traders of purple dye, cedar, and glass, had another skill, one that was less visible but equally extraordinary. They had discovered how to make plaster that could harden underwater. This may not sound exciting at first. Plaster is just a building material after all. But the implications of this discovery are profound, because it meant the Phoenicians could construct harbors, docks, cisterns, and channels that would endure the sea's relentless assault. It meant they could shape water itself, controlling it for trade, for agriculture, for life. Imagine the coastlines of the eastern Mediterranean, 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. Ships with their curved wooden hulls line the harbors. The air is heavy with salt and the smell of pine tar. And along the shore, Phoenician workers mix powders and liquids, stirring them slowly until the consistency is perfect, before laying them along stone walls, where the waves will crash against them. They did not know about concrete as we understand it today. They did not have Roman books or formulas. What they did have, however, was observation, experimentation, and patience. They understood that certain minerals, when combined with lime, would create a chemical reaction strong enough to resist water. They watched the effects over months and years, refining their methods through trial and error. Archaeologists have discovered the remnants of these ancient constructions in places like Tyre, Sidon, and Carthage. What is remarkable is how well the plaster has endured. It is not simply stone glued together. It is a substance that has bonded at a molecular level with its environment. Some walls and piers are still standing, though they have faced centuries of waves, storms, and earthquakes. Hydraulic plaster, as it came to be known, was not only practical, it was also a symbol of mastery over nature. For a civilization so intimately connected to the sea, controlling water was a form of power. It allowed them to build ports where ships could dock safely, to create reservoirs to store fresh water, to manage rain and irrigation for inland settlements. The Phoenicians' knowledge was eventually absorbed, consciously or unconsciously, by later civilizations. Romans perfected concrete and spread it across their empire, but in many ways the Romans were building on the foundation that Phoenicians had quietly laid centuries earlier. Modern research has shown traces of volcanic ash and specific mineral compounds in the Phoenician plaster that indicate a deliberate process, not chance, but careful observation and intention. Think of the workers at these ancient sites. They are not just laying material, they are experimenting with the elements, measuring the proportions of lime and clay, testing small patches against the tide, adjusting for heat, humidity, and the chemical composition of the local water. It is slow work, patient work. It is the kind of work that requires attention and care over months, perhaps even years. There is also evidence that Phoenician plaster was used beyond ports. Cisterns, baths, and public buildings in inland cities show the same attention to detail, the same mastery of material that could resist time and moisture. And in some cases it appears to have been decorative as well as functional, polished and colored to enhance the beauty of a structure, while still serving its practical purpose. The study of these ancient sites has changed our understanding of technological development. For a long time historians assumed the Romans invented hydraulic concrete. Now it is clear that the Phoenicians were using similar techniques centuries before. Their work demonstrates that innovation often emerges quietly, in places that are easy to overlook, in the routines of daily labor, in the observation of the natural world, in the patient trial and error that shapes knowledge into practice. The legacy of this discovery is subtle, but profound. When we walk along the ruins of Tyre or Sidon, or gaze at the remains of a Roman aqueduct, we are witnessing centuries of experimentation, refinement, and understanding of material and nature. The Phoenicians may not have left written instructions, but they left something equally valuable, proof that intelligence, patience, and observation can create structures that endure far beyond a single lifetime. Close your eyes for a moment and picture it, a quiet Mediterranean morning. The tide is gentle, lapping softly against stone piers. Workers kneel over trays of plaster, their hands mixing lime, ash, and water. The smell of wet clay and sea salt fills the air. They press the mixture into walls and cisterns, smoothing it carefully, watching how it interacts with the sea. Every movement is deliberate, every choice informed by experience and intuition. And over time the walls harden, impervious to the water that will continue to kiss them for millennia. It's a scene of calm precision and patience, the kind of slow, deliberate work that seems almost meditative from our modern perspective. And perhaps that is why learning about it now, centuries later, feels soothing. There is no rush, no chaos, just a quiet people, the sea, and their craft. Even today, when scientists analyze samples of Phoenician plaster, they marvel at the precision. The chemical composition is nearly perfect, almost as if the builders instinctively understood the principles of durability that modern engineers strive to replicate. It is a testament to human ingenuity, to the way observation and practice can yield results that endure beyond time, beyond the civilization itself. As you imagine these ancient harbors and cisterns, the slow pace of their construction, you can feel the rhythm of a different time. A time when life was tied closely to nature, when learning was hands-on, when knowledge came from experience as much as from books. It is calming to realize that patience, care, and understanding of the world can leave traces that last thousands of years. The Phoenicians may have traded goods across the Mediterranean, carrying cedar, dye, and glass, but their greatest gift was perhaps invisible to most. The knowledge of how to shape matter, how to endure, how to leave something behind that the world could still witness centuries later. Hydraulic plaster may seem like a small thing in comparison to pyramids or temples, but it is a window into human thought, experimentation, and care. It is evidence that even in the humblest of materials, humans can leave a legacy, and in this slow, deliberate, almost meditative work, there is a lesson for us today, that the simplest acts, done carefully and with attention, can create permanence in a world of impermanence. So tonight, as you rest, think of the quiet harbors of Phoenicia. Think of the workers, their hands in clay and lime, the soft lapping of the Mediterranean. Feel the calm of their work, the patience, the careful observation, the respect for material and nature. Let that rhythm guide your thoughts. Slow your breathing. Allow your mind to wander gently through the centuries, through the quiet streets and workshops of a civilization that mastered both the sea and the earth. The Phoenicians did not seek fame. They sought knowledge. They sought skill. And in their quiet way, they achieved something eternal. Structures that still stand, plaster that still holds, a legacy as enduring as the sea itself. Close your eyes now. Imagine the soft colors of the limestone, the muted blues of the Mediterranean dawn, the smell of wet earth and salt. Let your mind drift along the coastline, past the quiet harbors, past the stone walls that have survived countless storms, and feel the calm of centuries settling around you. Hydraulic plaster, once a mystery, now a story of patience, care, and quiet genius. The journey of stone. Stonehenge's distant origins. For centuries, Stonehenge has fascinated, puzzled, and inspired those who visit it. Its massive stones rise like silent sentinels on the plains of Salisbury. The arrangement is precise, almost otherworldly, a circle of power and mystery that has drawn scholars, travelers, and dreamers alike. Yet one of the greatest questions has always lingered: where did the stones come from? Recent discoveries have begun to answer that question in ways both astonishing and humbling. Some of the stones that form Stonehenge, known as the Blue Stones, did not originate nearby. They were quarried from the Preseli Hills in Wales, nearly 450 miles away from the site where they now stand. The scale of this undertaking is extraordinary. To imagine the ancient Britons moving these heavy stones across such a distance, using only the tools and knowledge available to them thousands of years ago, is to imagine a dedication and ingenuity almost beyond comprehension. The stones themselves weigh anywhere from 2 to 4 tons each, some even heavier. They are not smooth or easy to handle. Their surfaces are rough, and the terrain between the Preseli Hills and Salisbury Plain is rugged, filled with rivers, hills, and forests. Yet somehow, these people devised methods to transport them. Archaeologists suggest a combination of sledges, rollers, and wooden tracks might have been used, with teams of men laboring for months, even years, to move each stone carefully to its destination. It is important to pause here and consider the significance of this effort. The distance, the weight, and the precision of placement were not for practical purposes like building shelter or fortifications. They were not transporting these stones for trade, or for the convenience of everyday life. They were moving them for ritual, for spirituality, for connection. Stonehenge was not merely a monument, it was a bridge between the human and the divine, between the earth and the sky. In the quiet of the Preseli Hills, where the stones were quarried, one can almost imagine the scene thousands of years ago. Men and women, carrying baskets, using levers, pushing and pulling heavy stones across uneven ground, the sound of earth shifting, the creak of wooden rollers, the rhythm of breath and effort. Perhaps there was chanting, perhaps silence, perhaps a deep meditative focus on the sacred task ahead. Each stone moved was a step toward a vision, a ritual landscape that would stand for millennia. Once the stones arrived on Salisbury Plain, the task of erection began. Here too, the work required extraordinary skill. Large pits were dug, ramps constructed, and stones lifted into position, using primitive machines of levers and ropes. The blue stones were carefully aligned, not randomly placed, but positioned to correspond with celestial events, with the rising and setting sun at solstices. It is a reminder that these people observed the world with keen attention, noticing the cycles of the heavens, the passage of seasons, and the rhythms of life. Some theories suggest that the blue stones themselves were chosen for their spiritual significance. Perhaps they were believed to carry magical properties, or perhaps their origin in the distant hills was part of the power they were meant to convey. To transport them over hundreds of miles was a statement of devotion, a form of pilgrimage, a testament to faith and vision. The modern discovery of the stone's origins also reveals something about human determination. It shows us that even in times without machinery, without written instructions, people could achieve extraordinary feats through collaboration, creativity, and perseverance. It is a story of endurance, of planning, and of imagination. Imagine walking across Salisbury Plain today. The wind brushes against your face, the grass is soft beneath your feet, and the stones rise silently around you. You can sense the effort it took, the years of labor, the careful planning, and the hands that carved, pushed, and lifted each massive rock. You can feel the quiet strength and patience of those ancient workers, their understanding of physics, their knowledge of leverage and balance, and their unwavering dedication to something greater than themselves. There is also a profound lesson in time and perspective. The people who moved the stones and built Stonehenge lived in a world that seems remote to us now. They had no computers, no cranes, no modern vehicles, yet they achieved something that has lasted thousands of years, something that continues to inspire and puzzle humanity. It is a reminder that human capability is not limited by technology alone, but by vision, persistence, and the willingness to undertake monumental tasks. As you reflect on this, you can also consider the quiet, meditative aspect of their work. To transport and raise such massive stones required patience. It required careful attention to every detail. It required a focus on rhythm, on breathing, on the slow progress of effort. In a way, it is a story of mindfulness, of being present with each task, of listening to the land and the materials themselves. Stonehenge remains a mystery in many ways. We still do not know every purpose it served, every ritual performed there, every meaning embedded in its circular arrangement. But we now know that the distance of the stone's journey was not a barrier, but part of their story. The effort it took to transport them adds a layer of understanding to the spiritual and practical achievements of these ancient people. Tonight, as you think about Stonehenge, imagine the journey of those stones. Picture the hills of Wales, the rivers and forests, the quiet labor of people who believed in something beyond themselves. Feel the patience, the calm, the methodical effort. Let the vision of their work guide your own breathing, slow and steady. The stones have endured thousands of years. They have witnessed countless seasons, storms, and changes in the landscape. They have seen civilizations rise and fall, and yet they stand, quiet, patient, and unyielding. And now, as you rest, you can take comfort in that same sense of endurance, the patience of the builders, the slow progress of effort, and the calm determination that carried each massive rock across hundreds of miles, can now inspire a quietness within you, a stillness that prepares you for sleep. Stonehenge is not just a monument of stone, it is a monument to human vision, persistence, and the power of deliberate action. It is a reminder that with care, patience, and attention, great things can be achieved, and that some achievements endure far beyond a single lifetime. So tonight, as you drift off, picture those ancient Britons, moving the massive boulders, step by step, mile by mile. Hear the quiet sounds of their labor, feel the gentle rhythm of their breath, the calm pace of their work, and let that quiet patience ease your mind.